accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code 5551, and now we will go to closed session. Okay, we're going to reconvene now our regular meeting. Dr. Warren?
All right, folks, if everybody would please stand. First of all, if you feel comfortable doing so, please pray with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day, and Lord, thank you for our board members tonight, just as you always do, provide your wisdom as we go about the business of our children. Lord, thank you for all those in attendance tonight. Please bless this meeting, and please see us all safely home. And Lord, above all things else, just provide your love, your guidance, your wisdom, and your protection to our children. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you all. All right, folks, we have two very special young ladies here tonight to help us with our pledges. Taylor Roman. Taylor, wave at everybody. Hi, Taylor. Taylor and Addie both are from Sendera Ranch. And let's see, with Taylor are Werner and Lindsay. Werner, Lindsay, thank you for coming. Appreciate you. Let's see now Mr. Boules is here. Now, I know Mr. Boules didn't write this because the handwriting is way too neat.
I have very neat handwriting. No. Ms. Trice, our counselor.
That's exactly what I thought. All right. Taylor loves science. She loves exploring and learning about the earth. Good job, Taylor. Taylor loves baseball, video games, and playing with her toys. Mr. Boules writes, Taylor is a great student. She is a great friend and a leader in the classroom. Thanks for being here, Taylor. And then we have Addie Rodriguez from Sendera Ranch. Both of these young ladies are second graders. Richard and Beatrice. There we go. Good to see you. Addie loves math. She loves doing Imagine Math and working on the computer. Addie likes to play soccer. She is on the Phoenix Fire team. Good job, Addie. And she likes to play and watch TV. Addie is such a great leader. Addie leads the pledge every morning in class with enthusiasm. Thanks for being here, Addie. All right, ladies, we're going to do the American pledge first, and then we'll do the Texas pledge. So whenever you're ready. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now Texas. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one indivisible. Great job, ladies. Now stay right there. We got a little gift for you. Christmas come early, girls. Thank you, ladies. Parents, thank you very much. Appreciate y'all.
Okay, now we move to recognitions, but I understand there are none tonight. Okay, so now we go to public participation, and we do have Mr. John Lowe is here, and while I read a statement, if you'd like to make your way to the podium, you may. Public participation is an opportunity for the public to address the board on any matter, whether or not it is on the agenda. The board may place reasonable restraints on the number, length, and frequency of presentations so long as it does not unfairly discriminate among speakers based on viewpoint. 30 minutes are allotted for public participation. People who wish to speak must sign up and complete a request to speak form before the meeting. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes. Groups of more than 5 people shall appoint one person to speak for the group. Speakers should refrain from mentioning by name an employee or student about whom they are complaining. The board may not deliberate or take action on a presentation about an item not on the agenda. Okay? You may.
Awesome. Thank you. Our concern tonight, we have a student that is, do I need to state my name or where I'm from?
State your name and where you live, please.
Okay. John and Sarah Lowe, Sendera Ranch. We have a son that goes to Sendera Ranch Elementary that is in kindergarten. We're here tonight for one topic and one topic only, and that's information security and privacy for a minor. Using technology in today's world is great, but not all technology is good. Everybody loves their child, no matter who they are. Protecting our children's personal information and data used on electronic devices should be utmost importance for everybody, including schools and parents. Students are too young to make decisions about what information should be shared, so it is our responsibility as parents to make the decision for them. As an example, last Thursday evening, we received an emailed report card. Okay? It was not accurate, but we received an email report card as a parent guardian. We did not give legal consent for this to go to our email account. Emailing grade cards, and the knowledge that we would not know that it would be done. Nobody told us that you were going to send out email grade cards and stuff like that. So, emailing grade cards is a bad idea. With the use of technology, as an example, with grade cards being emailed out, the item on the topic tonight is the Lexia program used by Rosetta Stone. This program does collect personal data on each user, student and teacher and administrator, and other applications. Parents do not know how much of students' data is being shared with other companies. And there are a lot of parents, most of us out there, that have not given legal consent for this information to be shared. The district does buy package programs from different providers, and these package programs are programmed a certain way. They can be modified at an additional cost. But our concern tonight is technology and information, personal information without parents' consent. And if you're emailing out, the last statement is, if you're emailing out information, what other information are you collecting on our children that we do not, as parents, know about? Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6, consent agenda. Mr. Wright?
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Wright and a second by Mr. Hastings. All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, our next item is the Northwest ISD 2019 legislative priorities. Dr. Warren?
Okay, board, here's what we're going to do. And you should have, Mark, we got it, the PowerPoint ready to go? What I thought we would do is go through the PowerPoint, go priority by priority, and what I would like to do is just ask everyone if it's worded correctly, if it suits you. Let's go all the way through it one time to look at the wording, just look at the language, and then let's go back and really make the decisions on what you truly want included, what you don't want included, and had some really good suggestions about, maybe turning some of the oppositions into support, and, just kind of give me your feedback on all that. So, looking there on your screen board, of course, so Josh's sanity will be intact. The election is over. And so so January 8th, the regular session will convene, and hopefully, knock on wood, the last day will be May the 27th. So this year, you have 20 priorities that your educational divisions, our departments, have submitted to you as for you to consider for either advocating for, which is the vast majority of them are advocating for, 17 of the 20, and then 3 opposing. And if you want to look back, that's about 7 more. The first draft of this is about 7 more that you actually ratified last year. We had 10 advocating for and 3 opposition to that. All right, so. There are the priorities that we just put some subtitles and some headings on those, from school finance, our academic accountability and assessment, school safety and security, which is of course always a huge issue, and then transportation. A lot of that is we put it in the vein of local issues that we've been dealing with transportation. All right, so what we did is we listed all the 17 advocating for first, and then the 3 oppositions in the back. So the first one is and all these are the first several are talking about. We're going with finance. Advocate for adequate and equitable school funding system that reduces state over-reliance on recapture, which is us, and property value increases, which is also us. Advocate for local discretion on spending to ensure that the needs of students, staff, and communities are met. And then on each of these, well, I sent you in my Friday note, each of these, Angela and I kind of took them, and Carrie Ann and I have talked a lot about, putting some real languages. A lot of these legislative explanations are in legislative ease and education ease, so we put some more kind of a plain-spoken explanation on that. So that's where we went at. So number 1, does everybody like the way it's stated as it compares to, what we will put out there for our parents to look at to play advocates? So explanation number 1, good. Priority 1, good.
I think it's good. Just, I guess, and there's nothing that we need to change on this, but
okay.
As far as really educating our community what recapture means. Right. Absolutely. That's a good point.
And Ryder, I really like the part that is in red, the explanation. I don't know if that could be included, but that's a powerful statement.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, when Angela and I both kind of put our parent caps on to try to, to make sure to explain it. Number 2. Another finance, we would like the legislature to commit to historic levels of state investment in our schools by investing the dollars the state gains from increased property values into the foundational school program. And basically we're saying the same thing is the state's investment has historically gone down, where our local property owners, their investments have risen. So we want them to make sure that we want the state to commit to more dollars of the total funding of public education. Everybody good with that?
So how's that really different? How's 1 or 2 different then?
Well, not necessarily are. That's why we may go and eliminate some things if we think they're redundant.
Okay.
Yeah, we just thought, we asked for an adequate and equitable school funding program, and then we're just saying specifically we want the state to pony up more dollars and take it off the backs of property owners, and number 2.
Well, and I interpreted to say that the state used to give more to the schools, and now they're
Correct.
taking more away.
That's exactly
so that's
right.
a little different than...
Well, exactly. That's exactly right. All right. 3. advocate for adequate funding system and oppose any cuts to the foundation school program, support an updated and adequately funded formula-based school finance system, which takes into account the student and district characteristics when determining appropriate levels of funding to meet state and local. This one is actually talking about the system itself, that we need to get to a formula-based system which actually pays us the dollars we need to educate our children. It looks at our children and funds us appropriately depending on how many programs we have and the students within those programs. So that goes to the exact, and number one, it basically states the same thing. We want adequacy and equity in the funding system. All right. 4 gets into the weeds a little bit more in the public educational finance system. Increase the access to golden pennies beyond the current $4, allowing school board discretion without a mandatory election. Meaning there are 2 more cents out there. There's a $5 and a $6 that we could access without it being recaptured to the state. But the board does not have the discretion to access that money, even when we're paying $4 million out through Robin Hood this year. You can't access those pennies because the state law says you have to pay another, I don't know, Kim, how many, probably about $70,000 to put on a special election, $75,000 probably, and actually get permission from the electorate to access those. So I would actually like to see even more golden pennies on the table than just the 2 that we have left under current law. I would love all pennies above $4 to be golden, and I don't think if a community actually passes a TRE that we should have to send that money back. That's local voters voting for local pennies for their children. I really don't think it's fair for the state to take those dollars away.
Yeah, so you mentioned, I have several questions on the stuff you just asked.
Okay.
Or just mentioned. Every district that does a recapture, is it the same from that $4 to $6 that is not recapturable?
Correct. Those are the golden pennies.
So the South Lake Carols, they don't have to pay recapture on
$5, $6. Right. Anything above the $6, $7, you start being recaptured back in the state.
With the Frisco TRE that just passed, there was a lot of public contention behind that, and I was in that Facebook group reading what they were saying about their board members and whatnot. But a lot of the anger, and I can understand this comes from all they're doing is voting for the TRE to send more money to the state, and that was the big disconcern. So I think if it's mentioned that way, hey, if we want as many golden pennies as we can, but it can't be recaptured, I think that's how it needs to be worded. But as a taxpayer, just to ask for all golden pennies all the way to 117, it's a little scary. I'd like to have some input on that.
It is. Well, from the school district's point of view, if you don't ask for $1.17, you're leaving money on the table for your children.
Right.
If from a taxpayer point of view, that's just more money. Even if we want it to be spent on our children, it's being recaptured back to the state.
And I think that's where even me personally have the biggest resistance is it's the recaptured that's not even going to be used for educational purposes once it gets to the state. So.
Yeah. And Josh, you're going to find this interesting. I actually sit in front of 2 of our state leaders, one senator and one representative. My question was, the LBB, the Legislative Budget Board, presents just like John gives us his estimates of what he thinks our revenue is going to be, the LBB does the same thing to the legislature on what they think the revenue is going to be. They don't know whether the money, because they have no idea which district is going to pass a TRE or how many districts are going to pass a TRE any given biennium. They don't know if that money is even budgeted, even guessed at. That's just kind of gravy on top of that. So, if they don't even budget that money, then I think it should stay within. I mean, if the state doesn't know that they can actually even count on it, why don't you leave it to the local children to use as we see fit? So,
and it's funny in talking with folks that aren't in districts like ours that are subject to recapture, and when you just explain that premise, that your own community is voting for this, yet you're having to send 45-50% back to the state.
Right.
I mean, people that aren't in districts like ours, they find that to be ludicrous.
Yeah. And Steve, you made the statement, South Lake Carroll districts like Highland Park, they're probably sending 75 cents of every dollar back that they,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they've got such huge values, but so few kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess so wearing two hats here, yes, I see on the board side why get access to the money we need, but as a taxpayer, especially with the appraisals that are out of control, maybe it needs to be worded to increase golden pennies beyond the $1.04 that are, by saying something that's recapturable or to increase the pennies that can't be recaptured.
That's what golden pennies mean. The definition of golden penny means
then we get into silver and
John, make sure I'm saying that right.
Yeah. Okay.
The definition of a golden penny is non-recapturable.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm with you on that.
And again, I think what you've said below, Texas school boards do not have the power to set tax rates above $1.04. That's a clear statement.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I didn't understand the heading enrichment because it doesn't seem like it's enrichment. I'm looking at the sheet of paper.
Right.
It seems like it's basic. So I couldn't get I didn't understand the heading because it seemed like this should be non-negotiable.
Right.
So that was my...
Okay, so does Angela need to change anything on the wording of that one? Everything, okay. Okay, calculate all Chapter 41 recapture, including enrichment, which means going beyond the $1.04, at the Austin yield. John, explain to everybody what the Austin yield is, please.
Basically, it's a rate that was set on the wealth per student in Austin. It's at $514,000. So you have to have $514,000 of wealth per student before you hit recapture. That's why we haven't paid recapture for a long time on the general fund budget until this year. On the extra pennies from 7 cents on up, you pay at $319.5, which I believe dates back into the 90s. So that's a very low threshold for recapture, and that's why you see a district like ours could be ultimately having 40% recaptured on our extra funds. So this, in essence, it wouldn't allow us to keep all of our money at home, but it would allow us to keep
It is a savings for us.
And it's more reasonable because the other number is really hopelessly out of date.
Yep. Which the state lacks that.
Gives more money to them.
Yep. Okay, something that's definitely that is not unique around the state, but it is us. Number 6, support fast growth school districts' need for flexibility and ability to exceed a 50-cent debt cap due to rapid enrollment growth and construction needs, as well as to allow locally elected school boards and voters the ability to effectively manage the total tax rate. It was about 12 years ago, about 6 sessions ago, where the legislature took school boards out of the group of any other taxing board in our communities. City councils, county commissioners, hospital boards, water districts, they can all set their tax rate as long as they don't go above that little magic effective tax rate, they can set their tax rate on what their needs of their organization is. We cannot. Texas school boards cannot go above the cap, and there's 2 different caps. We just talked about the $1.04 cap for you before we have to call an election. Same thing with bond elections. We can call bond elections based on the needs, and most bonds that we sell are for increased capacity because of our student growth. But we have a hard cap, which is 50 cents, and we could very well one of these days outgrow that 50 cents and would have to stop building schools because our tax rate is capped. And if the main premise is this, if the total tax rate right now is capped at $1.67. You can go up to $1.17 on M&O by vote, and you can go to 50 cents on INS. So that's $1.67 total. What we would like is for boards to have the discretion to work within that $1.67 to meet the needs of their district. We may have to go a little bit more than 50 cents to keep up with our growth, but as long as we don't go over that hard cap, I don't see the need for them to establish those kind of rules that no other taxing entity has to be under except school boards.
Dr. Warren, where are we at right now on INS on that? Or wait, 46?
We've got a nickel left, Josh. We're at 45.
Okay.
We're at a total $1.49. We're still at the $1.04. John looked back. Someone asked me that the other day. John looked back, and we raised. I think two. You were at $1.02. I think I thought we raised 2 more cents.
So when Byron opened, we raised it 2 and then 2. So it was 2 cents one year and then 2 cents the next.
So it's been about a dozen years since you have raised it to the cap to the $1.04, and we've lived under the $1.04 since then. And again, just the issue is that as a fast growth school district, we know we're going to be adding more money to our budget every year just to hire enough folks, especially classroom teachers, to keep up with our 1,000 new students a year. So again, this is more discretion of making sure that local boards have more power, have more discretion to be able to understand local needs. Okay? All right. Transportation. Increase the transportation allotment to better reflect current transportation costs. Basically, we just like this is a huge, huge cost for most school districts. We right now we're running about 180 routes every day, twice a day. We're busing more than 14,000 kids every day, twice a day, and we would like them to reflect that. Like I said, the state has not adjusted the transportation allotment since the 80s. Everybody good with that? Okay. All right, this is a long one. Stay with me. Advocate for increased funding for technology and instructional materials allotment to adequately fund instructional materials and allow a new long-range education plan for one-to-one infrastructure and internet support. Sorry, those. You won't. They oppose any carve-outs from the TEMA that decrease the amount of funds to school districts and local support local control and flexibility in the district use of the TEMA funds. Again, we're just wanting them to adequately fund the programs that we have. That's just a long one. It's very wordy. Okay. Number 9, a lot less convoluted. Advocate for funding full-day pre-K programs for all students who qualify who may want to apply. So what we're not saying is we want to require 4-year-olds to be in pre-K. That's not what we're saying. We don't want to put the requirement down to 4-year-olds, but those who qualify, who apply, and we have a very successful now under y'all's leadership. We have a very successful program for those who are tuition based, but we're still on a half-day pre-K system because that's what we can afford. And we do think we're leaving some kids behind because it's very hard for some parents to get half-day child care to be able to do that. We do think we're missing some kids on that. So this is if you look at pretty much every organization that I sent you, full-day pre-K, fully funding pre-K. And when Governor Abbott was elected, we really had some high hopes that, because this is what he talked about a lot, he just could not get through the legislature. Even as governor, he could not get through the legislature the full funding of full-day pre-K. Number 10, establish a comprehensive accountability system that looks beyond high stakes, multiple choice exams into meaningful assessments that incorporate facets of the whole child, as well as measurements that a community deems as a priority, and oppose the A through F campus and district grading system. And basically, we're trying to tell people that 5 million kids cannot be assessed using one tool, and to truly get a good look at their learning. And we should not be given that single A through F rating because it doesn't take into consideration 3/4 of what we truly do with children. Advocate that the state student assessment program be limited to only those assessments required to meet ESSA, the new federal requirements, and redirect the fund savings from the reduction in assessments to help fund, again, those technology programs. And basically what we put, I think Angela came up with this, local teachers need to teach more and the state needs to test less. We get a lot more data from what our teachers assess and the data that our teachers bring to the table rather than what the state brings to the table. 12, advocate for additional and ongoing funding for school safety and initiatives. We talked a lot about this last year, especially with the shootings that the nation had to undergo and deal with this last school year. Advocate for flexibility in how districts utilize these funds to meet the needs of local schools and communities. Oppose any new requirements that are not funded, because they do a very good job of telling us what we need to do, but not so much as actually paying for it. 13, support funding for data security, staff and student through cybersecurity funding dedicated to all support of school districts. Adam spends a lot of time, Adam and his team spend a lot of time, and we heard good comments tonight about data security and because I mean the parents who talked to us tonight were right. I mean, we do have a lot of information both on kids and adults in the district. Our staff, 3,000 staff members and 24,000 kids, and we've got to make sure that it's secure at all times. So we need they need to understand we're living and working in the 21st century, and we've got to have that kind of security in our system. Support enhanced decision-making authority for those governmental entities closest to the citizens and oppose state, federal overreach, local control. Advocate for the continuation of the current defined benefit pension program for TRS members. And basically, I'm talking, this is my time to go to faculty meetings right now. I'm going to hit out all 28 campuses. And even our youngest teachers, our 22, 23-year-olds, they've got to make sure that they're paying attention to this, because TRS is rock solid. It is a very well-run retirement system, and the state does not need to mess around with that, because that is a draw that we have to get people into the jobs. Is the TRS system. It's a good system to retire under. Advocate for increased state funding to assist with the TRS care. We have a great relationship with our retired teacher association here. Very well represented by a board member. But it's scary right now. Just thinking about when you get to be retirement age, when you get into those years, and thinking about so much of your take up home would be taken up for just healthcare costs. Okay, last one for advocating for, to advocate to accommodate the rapid growth of NISD and North Texas, support efforts of funding to expand road infrastructure needs, especially east-west thoroughfares, and to expedite the construction of roadways to support public schools that are planned and built. I wanted to say something very ugly about the trains, but I didn't. I think locally we're getting some real big support on this. You know, the I-35 coalition is really looking now, since I-35 is really taking shape, looking at those east-west thoroughfares. You know, we're having discussions now with BNSF. So hopefully we can make some short-term and long-term gains over the next several years on our infrastructure, because it's not going to get better. It's really not. Okay, the three opposing. Number one, oppose the state benefiting from rising property values that taxpayers assume is benefiting public schools. Advocate for a full value of this funding benefit public education and not be used to fund other state initiatives or decrease the share of public school funding. And that's what they really have done. As property values have risen, they've pulled more money back from the state coffers to go somewhere else. So we really need them to make sure that if they're going to keep relying on personal property values, it needs to go for education, because that's what's in the books. That's what's in the law. God bless you. Oppose any state voucher plan, tax credits, or taxpayer savings grant that would, or any program that diverts public taxpayers' dollar to private entities, homeschool students, and parents with little or no academic or financial accountability to the state, taxpayers, or local communities. And what I tell people all the time, I've got no problem with any schools around us, whether it be charters or private schools or homeschool parents. That's a parental choice. It just, we shouldn't take money away from public education to pay for a parental choice. And if I tell people, if Jill and I wanted to raise our kids in a religious-based system, it'll look really weird if we'd have done it. Y'all have probably had a problem with that for me to do that, but it would be my choice to pay for if we did that, and that's what that is. The last one is charter schools. Oppose the further expansion of charter schools, including increase the number of campuses under existing charters, unless they are subject to the same accountability and transparency rules as traditional public schools. The big thing for charter schools, again, I don't mind any kids going to charter schools, but just the approval process that TEA has right now, literally you could staff one of our buildings in a spring, and they could open a charter school during the summer and take half of our kids off of a campus. And we've already staffed it. We've already hired teachers. We've already done it. So we've staffed for 600 kids, and 300 kids are not going to show up because TEA just, boom, plants them without telling us specifically where they're going to go, and for us to do an analysis of how that would affect our campuses. Okay, so you've got, let's go all the way back, you've got 17 right now, you've got 20 total. You've got advocating for 17. You've got opposing 3. Do you want to combine? Do you want to stay as is, all 20? Do you think there are some that are redundant? Y'all, just tell me how you feel. You need to feel comfortable with this, because we're going to start. Emily and Angela are going to start sending this out to the masses starting tomorrow. We're going to send the red out as well, because that's what, when we started meeting with our PTA parents and other community groups, they said they would really like to have explanations in real language, in real English. Yep.
So, Dr. Warren,
Mr. Schluter.
I like all of these points. I'd kind of like them all to stay like they are.
Okay.
Somebody has some to add. But how are we pushing these? Obviously, we'll send them out to our legislators, but how do we follow through and push these all the way into the next legislative session?
Mark, here's the game plan. We will send to every group that we have in the district, of course, the 8 leaders, the 8 state leaders, 5 state representatives, and 3 senators. I will meet one-on-one with each of the 8 to make sure that they understand the priorities. We have our superintendent roundtable, which comprises our PTA leadership. We have leadership in ISD. We have our ambassadors. So we have 3 different parent groups that are very influential, very important to us to get to that. So we're going to make sure we make presentations to all of them, and they've already been kind of given a highlight of these as the draft form, so that they will know this is what's coming up. And then I'm going to visit each of our city councils to make sure that our city councils understand that can they support us in doing this, our 3 counties. And then I'm going to write the letter that goes out to all 50,000 parents and caregivers and include this on my before we get let out for Christmas break. I'm going to write one of my updates is just going to be about this. And we're going to be very detailed in how folks can contact our legislators, not just one time, but multiple times through the legislative process.
So was there a follow-up last year after these priorities were put out and everything went through the session?
Pretty much everybody's follow-up for the last session was that it was a wasted session. We talked more about bathrooms than we did about educating kids last session. We hope for something different this session.
I think, and you might have mentioned this, but working with our business partners as well, because that's something that is very important. We're seeing business really step up for public education and just communicating these goals with them,
absolutely,
priorities with them as well.
Emily has a very good relationship with both now all 3 chambers. We have the Metroport, Fort Worth, and now I am the newest member of the board for the Wise County Chamber of Commerce. And so we will discuss that. That's great. That's a great idea.
Dr. Warren, on these advocating for, especially ones that deal with school financing, are we going at them with any solutions on how to fix the problem? Is the Fast Growth Coalition doing a different angle as part of just saying, hey, this is what we want, but without any solutions, are they going to?
Well, the solution, there's two big things we need them to do, Steve. Number one is and John has said this 100 times, they have to update the formulas that they have right now. A lot of those allotments have not been updated since the 70s, 80s, or 90s. So we're still trying to pay 2018 bills using money from the 1990s, and they just don't match up. And the second thing is, if they go to a full formula, take out all the hold harmless, take out all the little thing, and go to a fully funded formula program, that truly gets you to an area where they look at your children, and they say you have X amount of gifted and talented students in your district. Gifted and talented students need more because of the program they're in, so they fund you like that. And if they will be able to do that. Now, and John knows so much more than I do about this. I don't have a lot of answers on where they're going to get the money from. That's above my pay grade. You know, I know they need to reduce the burden on local property owners. I know that. If they do new taxes, if they do, whatever else they charge us for, the fees and everything that they do, increase those. They tried a franchise tax 6 years ago. It didn't work. It didn't produce enough money, and it actually started hurting small business owners more than anything else. So I can't give them a lot of guidance on where to get the money from, but to build the school finance system, it's just making sure that they have a formula in place that doesn't kick out anybody and harm anyone, and that pays you for who you're educating.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was just wondering, is there, everybody's complaining, but does anybody have a solution? I guess that's where I'm...
John, do you have a comment on that?
The House actually has come up with solutions in the last two legislative sessions. In the last legislative session, there was the Huberty bill, which came out of the House Public Ed, but it was held hostage in the Senate because they wouldn't vote for a voucher system, essentially. And the same thing happened the previous time. I can't remember who was in charge of the House Public Ed Committee before Huberty. But and in both those bills, they were very similar in that they took out some of the things like the cost of education index, which hasn't been updated since 1982, 3, 4, something like that, and just rolled it into the basic allotment. They took out some other things as well and rolled them into the basic allotment. So it was an attempt to simplify those formulas. Took out the high school allotment, for example, and just ran it into the basic allotment, which gets rid of the restrictions and gives you actually more local control over what you do with your money as well. But then the only funding source that we're proposing, of course, is that they actually take the additional funds they get from recapture and local share and run that into raising the basic allotment as well. So they could raise the basic allotment through simplification. That wouldn't increase overall funding, but then they could take the funds the additional funds they're getting that are driving down their percentage of school finance to below, I think it's Dr. Warren, 38% sticks in my mind, and hold the line at 40% and then raise the basic allotment accordingly. So there's a couple of different ways they can get some money into it. They could use the money they're getting from property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
This is the question, and we don't have to answer it, but I know that the governor has been working with a committee to really readdress school funding in general, the revision of school funding.
Yes.
So as we send this out with these priorities, how will that committee receive this as being supportive or redirection? That may be, we may not know that yet. I know that they've got proposals, but I'm just curious as to how they might see this.
Well, we will send these out. Every organization that I sent you, TASA, TASB, Fast Growth School, we will send these to them. Moat Casey, so they do a good job of keeping kind of a file, a clearinghouse on all, vast majority of the 1,100 school districts in the state pass priorities. So hopefully they'll be able to get the clear picture. And not only is the school finance council that, but the governor actually even produced a plan of his very own, separate and apart. And we will send our plan both to the governor's office, lieutenant governor's office, and when we know who that person is, the Speaker of the House.
So, Dr. Warren, when you meet with the reps and the senators, will you let us know?
Absolutely.
We tag along?
Absolutely.
I have a concern about one.
Tell me.
The enhancement. I want to make sure that we have an explanation that the board's not planning on raising their taxes, because that's what they're going to read into that.
Are you talking about the increase in golden pennies?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm afraid that some that have very little knowledge or want to construe it in a manner in which it's not meant will inflame people into thinking that we're trying to say we're just going to start raising tax rates, and that's not it at all.
What would you suggest?
Yep.
Cool, Mr. Hastings.
Well, I just think that we need to, maybe a little bit more, like Josh said, about recapture, and then about a TRE, what it is and why.
So add that explanation to it?
Add more, just some more explanation. It's great. It's an enhancement that we need. It's just that I want to make sure that someone has the...
would you like me to add that to the actual thing or the explanation below?
The explanation below.
Below? Okay,
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah.
We can absolutely do
No,
that.
I don't think it needs to be in that part, but I think we need to make sure that the average taxpayer, well, and average legislator can understand it, because there's going to be some in there that don't even know what a golden penny is.
You're right. We can do that.
It's almost like the red on this number 4 needs to be about 3 pages long to explain.
It could.
One sentence, yeah.
It could very well be, yeah.
To kind of show what's golden, what's silver, what's copper, what's recapture, what's not. So,
Madam President,
Mr. Sluter?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Northwest IC 2019 legislative priorities with the following revisions. And this item 4 with further clarification.
I second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sluter, a second by Mr. Hastings to approve the Northwest ISD 2019 legislative priorities with the following revisions of explanation on number 4. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you, Board. Very good work on this. Very good work by everybody. Thank y'all.
Okay, next, consider board policy update 111 affecting local policies. Dr. Warren?
Board local update number 111 began on page 71 in your packet, and it ran all the way through 507. And Christy's presentation, and Christy did a great job with her presentation about what all your local implications were. So she will take any of your questions now before I'll ask you to approve.
Christy, I have one question about DHE local. Let me see if I can find it.
what page is that on?
It's on the slide.
Okay.
It's page 512 on our agenda.
Yeah. I just wanted to be a little clear here about the removal of an employee from duty. And is this when there's been some kind of warrant or arrest, or is this just something that we would suspicion? I guess that's the only clarification I need.
Right. So this one is based on reasonable suspicion that an employee who is currently on duty is under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So they are on our campuses, they're working with our children, and we suspect that they are drunk or high at that very moment. Welcome.
Any other questions?
Board, I'd recommend approval of update 111.
Madam President,
Mr. Wright?
move to approve TASB policy update 111 as recommended by administration and the Texas Association of School Boards.
I have a motion by Mr. Wright, a second by Dr. Simpson. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, our next item is consider local district policy update 2018.07 affecting local policy FFAC local, wellness and health services, medical treatment, and FFC, student welfare and student support services.
Board, you have two issues here. FFAC, we just need to incorporate the TASB recommended language on the use of EpiPens on our campuses, and then FFC adds Victoria to the name for our new homeless coordinator. It's just adding a name to our exhibit. I would recommend approval.
Hey, Madam President.
Mr. Sproles.
I move to approve. I lost my place. Move to approve local district policy update 2018.07 to amend board policies FFAC local and FFC exhibit as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Sproles, a second by Mr. Wright. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you, Board.
Our next item is interlocal agreement with Tarrant County for road construction and transportation improvements to the southbound access road adjacent to Adams Middle School. Dr. Warren?
Board, Tim brought you this report to you last board meeting. The information starts on page 526. This is an agreement with Tarrant County, who has very generously agreed to do the work on the access road and the ramp onto 287 from Adams Middle School that will greatly reduce the traffic issues we have in the Eaton, Adams, Schluter area. After any of your questions, I would recommend approval.
I will say that is very generous by both TxDOT and Tarrant County, so we appreciate. And with that, Madam President,
Mr. Schluter?
I move to approve the interlocal agreement with Tarrant County to provide funding for engineering and materials for the extension of the southbound access road and relocation of the on-ramp near the intersection of Highway 287 and Blue Mountain Road, as recommended by the administration.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Schluter, a second by Dr. Roush. All those in favor?
Question.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I guess I just am curious to understand, have we had to do this before for other schools? I'm curious as to why we get into the road construction business, period.
Yeah, a lot of times we are a party to any road improvements based on land improvements. So any adjoining land property owners often participate or are required to participate in a partnership to improve land. So for instance, and it ties into this story or this item here before you, Eaton, the Willow Springs Road that runs along the west side of Eaton. We have a commitment there to improve Willow Springs. We've been waiting on the developer across the road that's building all the houses and the city of Fort Worth to start that. City of Fort Worth passed their bond election for their roads, so they're ready to begin that. We've had that commitment since well before I showed up to this position. That commitment from the district side is appropriated based on the amount that it would take to improve that road as a partnership with City of Fort Worth and the commitment of the developer. For that instance, we have a commitment somewhere around $2 million for that road. With this road, we're the only one that fronts it besides TxDOT, and the bigger reason for us to get involved was because of the safety and security concerns, because there's no egress out of that campus legally. There's a lot of egress going on illegally, but legally there's no egress out of those three campuses without going back through some underdeveloped roads. I say the reason the Willow Springs is important is because one of the concessions that we're working with City of Fort Worth to help, and you see in my notes about helping pay for half of what we're committing to today, is to lessen the amount we owe on Willow Springs. So we're kind of going to just shift some money there, and that's what we're working through right now between Christie and City of Fort Worth to bring to you in the future to say that's going to be the reduction as we start Willow Springs.
That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did also just wonder why the builders wouldn't have been a partner in this, since they benefit from having the schools, and the taxpayer pays city tax, county tax, and school tax. So it could appear that we're all paying 3 times for a road.
Sure. Well, and on this run it is a little bit more difficult because it only fronts our property and the highway. But on the Willow Springs, the developer is required to bring that improvements as well as their party to that road, that frontage road.
And then one final question. Once we've made this commitment and we've fixed the road so we can actually use it, what do we do? We don't have responsibility for maintenance, do we?
No, that's actually an agreement that is not before you because it's an agreement between the county and TxDOT. So their memorandum of understanding is the county is going to perform the work, and then once that work is completed, we'll dedicate it to TxDOT for their maintenance and servicing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had one more quick question regarding that maybe illegal egress. Have we seen many accidents or,
We've had a couple of close calls, but I can't recall one accident that we've seen occur just yet. So, but we have had a couple of close calls.
The thing that gives TxDOT really the most heartburn is when people do exactly what we're trying to fix. People come out of Adams and does the U-turn back to South 287.
Right.
And a lot of people do that.
Yes.
Any other questions? Sorry. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sluter and a second by Dr. Roush. All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next item, consider a resolution of Northwest ISD approving and ratifying the district entering into a contract to purchase a site and facility known as the Flint Energy Facility in Wise County, Texas from ARCP ID Mesa Portfolio, LLC. Dr. Warner?
Board, that information starts on page 535. We've discussed this extensively, and I think we're making a good decision in getting that transportation facility on our west side of the district. That I think is really going to be a boon for us as we run our so many routes out there. I would recommend approval.
Any questions?
Madam President,
Mr. Wright?
I move to approve a resolution of Northwest ISD approving and ratifying the district's entering into a contract to purchase a site and facility known as the Flint Energy Facility in Wise County, Texas from ARCP ID Mesa Portfolio, LLC, utilizing undesignated funds from the 2012 Capital Bond Program as recommended by the administration.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Wright, a second by Mr. Sproles. Any other questions?
I guess just a point of clarification, this will actually be saving us transportation dollars?
It will be. We have looked, even before I came in, the district has looked for a transportation facility on that side because so many of our county routes are run out there, and so we really do think it's going to be a very positive thing and cost savings for the district.
All those in favor? 7-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, our next item, 2019-2020 high school course academic planning guide, course additions, enhancements, or deletions. Dr. Warren?
And you have such a better presenter than Dr. Ferris. You have Dr. Griffin with you tonight. This is something that's presented to you every year. Any additional additions, enhancements, or deletions to our high school course guide, and this is a discussion only, and they'll give you about a month to look at those to finally approve in December. Dr. Griffin.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm not sure about the better presenter on this. Dr. Ferris has put an extensive amount of work in preparing this, and so I am playing a little bit of second fiddle to this, and I'm quite certain that there are some folks in the audience who will help me out with any of the questions that you have. But we again are excited to share with you our course selection guide for 2019-2020. Every time I type that, I have to stop and think, is it really almost 2020? And it is. So, of course, a driving factor in our discussions on determining the needs of our students so that they are prepared for their future is continuing to look at our strategic framework and our profile of a graduate. And specifically, our strategic framework outlines in our goal number 1 that students will achieve success through meaningful learning experiences, innovative pathways, and personalized opportunities. And I think you will hear all 3 of those as themes throughout our recommendations tonight. On an annual basis, we convene a committee to review our current course selection guide and take several things into consideration. The committee is made up of central office folks from the C&I department, our curriculum coordinators, executive directors, and those from our C&I leadership team, as well as high school principals, associate principals, and counselors. And together, we take the considerations from the campus level and take a look at what our kids need to be able to be future ready. With what I'm going to share with you, we don't anticipate there would be any new staff needs based on these recommendations. So the process began in early October, and you can see through this several of the actions that Dr. Ferris and those of us in the C&I leadership and the committee have engaged in, leading up to our presentation tonight as a discussion item and seeking approval at the December board meeting. Following that, our students will be informed of the changes, and our parents as well. And we'll have our showcases coming up, and students will start making their course selections for high school, and then our high schools will start building their master schedules. So the revisions that we are proposing, to start with, we would plan to add a Algebra 1 lab for students who need STAR intervention. This would be similar to an SSI class. And we also would like to change the wording for all of our math classes to remove the grade level and direct students and parents to see the prerequisites. We have, as we continue to grow and have new students move into our district, and also students that take various assessments, placement assessments. We have kids that don't necessarily follow freshman coursework, so we would, if they are a freshman, they may be in a sophomore level math course, so we would like to try and make it less confusing for them and have them refer to the prerequisites to see which math class is most appropriate for them. We would also plan to add some guidance language to our computer science course. It can now qualify as a world language credit, and we want to make sure our students and parents understand that. We also plan to drop Computer Science 2. Students would have access to AP Computer Science A, or on-ramps Computer Science, which is also a course that we plan to add for next year. Moving into our world languages, we plan to drop the Spanish for Spanish speakers course and just use our placement tests to appropriately place our Spanish speaking students into the appropriate Spanish level course. We also plan to add dual language French 1 and 2 and German 1 and 2 at Steele Accelerated High School. This would be accessible to all students, but it would be centrally located with the partner who we would be using for the dual credit at Steele Accelerated High School. And we would also plan to add a newcomers English language development, NELD A and B, to pair with our English for speakers of other languages courses. And for our gifted and talented students, we would like to continue the GT coursework in math to align with the GT math classes that they have in middle school. So we would add a pre-AP GT geometry and algebra 2 section. And we'd also plan to add GT courses for our seniors and those senior level courses that you see listed there, so that we have GT offerings for kids in both math, social studies, and language arts at all levels of high school. And moving into our CTE revisions, and we have a number of additions or changes in our pathways, and our pathways would be for at all of the courses offered at all of our high schools, not necessarily not related to our academy classes, but in the business pathway, add a business law class. In our creative media productions, we plan to drop the animation strand of courses and to keep pace with the industry recommendations and what they're wanting to see in our students, really beef up our computer science and our coding courses that we currently offer. We also have some staffing issues with those animation courses and a little bit of misleading of what those animation courses are. Students think they're getting in just for gaming, and so we have a hard time attracting the students who we would want in the classes, and we also have some staffing issues with that. We would like to add audio-visual production lab and also a print and imaging technology class for all 4 years. That would replace the yearbook class that we would like to drop. And one of the reasons is that would be a CTE class, and so we would have access to funding for it as well as some advanced technology offerings for opportunities. And also in our CTE course revisions, we'd like to add engineering math in our STEM pathway, drop digital media and web technologies in our information technology pathway, but add computer maintenance and networking 1, again, to keep up with the industry demands. And also in our investment banking and finance pathway, add financial analysis and securities and investments. And no, welding is not a part of our investment banking and finance pathway. I thought that was corrected. It actually is in our agriculture science pathway. We currently have ag mechanics for our freshmen and sophomores, and there is a great need for welding, and so we would like to add welding 1 for juniors next year, with potentially adding welding 2 the following year as they move into their senior year. And there's definitely a need in our area with all the construction and some business partner opportunities with that as well. So we're excited about that. This just shows our current blended courses. We'll be entering our 3rd year of having blended offerings where students have seat time with direct instruction from the teacher during parts of the week, and then they also have an opportunity to be learning on their own during other times of the week for that particular course. These courses listed here aren't necessarily offered in a blended format at all of our high schools, but they are offered throughout the district at some of our high schools. And these are the courses that we would like to add a blended option. You'll see those listed on the left and the campuses that they would be offered listed on the right. And for dual credit, just a summary of the dual credit courses that we would like to add. On-ramps, college algebra, physics, and computer science, and as well as what I already mentioned with dual credit French 1 and 2 and German 1 and 2 that would be offered at Steele. That's probably the fastest you've ever had the course revisions presented to you. But our next steps after approval in December would be reviewing our MOUs and negotiating any changes or additions to those, and also making sure our grading guidelines are in line with our course offerings.
Very nice job.
So, what questions do you have for us?
Board will take any of your questions. That's for us. Is that what?
For us, yes.
She will love to take any of your questions right now, but you will have about a month to review all this and before you vote on it in December to ask questions after you get into it.
I just had a question about welding. Is it going to be offered for all? Will all of our students that are interested, will they have access to it? Because I know it isn't a need.
At all of our high schools, correct? Yes. I just have a question about the French and German. How does that work for a student at Byron that wants to take it and they don't go to Steele? Would they?
It would be an online option, and they would basically zoom into those classrooms, and they'll have conversations back and forth.
Kind of a distance learning model where they would stay on their campus but still be able to. And they'll be able to do that at any of the other high schools? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I had a question on the The APGT versus a normal AP class, what's the difference? Is it weighted any different?
It's not weighted any differently. The biggest difference is that we would make sure that that teacher is certified with GT and understand how those learners that are engaged in work. And then the curriculum would look different as well. Maybe not totally, but different options and different things to meet the different needs.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about that too. So would these be separate sections where it'd only be GT kids, which could mean 5 students sitting in a classroom?
No, we definitely would not do that. So it's going to be based on GT first, we have first options, and then if it looked like there was a lot of interest in it, then we would open it up.
Okay. My understanding was that AP that's a set curriculum. Is it changed?
The curriculum is set, but how you approach it could look different.
Okay.
This isn't a question, it's just a request for future. I'd like to learn more about our blended course options and the performance of our students in those courses. I know blended learning is huge, and certainly it's going across universities, so we are helping them be college and career ready. But since we've done it for 3 years, it'd be a nice opportunity for us to learn more about it. Okay.
All right, thank you. It's obviously a team effort.
Our next item is District of Innovation. Dr. Warren.
Board, Dr. Thornhill is honored to be in front of you with his District of Innovation report. He has done a really, really good job working through the committee work on this process, and he is following the TEA prescribed schedule to be in front of you tonight. Dr. Thornhill.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much. I come to you today as much to ask for guidance on next steps as anything, and update you on the process and where we've gone a little bit. We have worked very hard over the last couple months to get some ideas from the community, from our staff, and want to kind of share with you where we are and some of the ideas that we have moving forward. But wrong click. Ooh, there's 2 of them up here. There we go. All right. So just as a reminder on some of the background, the 84th Legislature gave districts the opportunity to apply for District of Innovation and gain waivers and possible exemptions from several legal responsibilities that they have. And we are looking at some of those. As you can see, you have to have been at least acceptable in order to be eligible for the District of Innovation. As you remember from our reports in August, our district received an A rating, and so that is not an issue for us if we decide to move forward. There are currently 784 districts that have been submitted and been approved for a District of Innovation this year, so quite a few, about 3/4 of the state have done that, and these districts vary in size. Many of our area districts are doing that, and I'll come to a reason why that might interest us later on in the presentation. So if you remember, we started this discussion last year in September 2017. I first talked to you then and asked you to sign a resolution to get a committee together and plan for consideration. We did have a public hearing in October, and then as we continue to go through this process, we decided to postpone it. And we've decided to postpone it for several reasons. The 2 biggest were, one of the issues coming up was a calendar, and we felt like it was a little too late in the game to adjust our calendar. But really, even more importantly than that, was we were moving forward with our strategic planning committee, and we wanted to see what ideas came out of that before we decided to be innovative, if you will. And so we wanted to finish that process and know what it is that we were asking for. So here's our timeline for where we've been this year, and I apologize to the audience for the small text. Board members, you have both the PowerPoint and also I believe the draft of the booklet that we've sent forward. But in August we came to you, or in September we came to you, did that in 2017, but I'm going to go all the way down to about the 5th line. I came to you this August and asked you to reconsider it and ask us for a chance to move forward. And I think you asked me if we were going to be innovative. and I promised we would try our best. And so I'm going to bring you some of those ideas forward. But we came together with a committee that included parents, teachers, administrators, and we've met several times. We asked the DEIC for some guidance during their first meeting in September. We have presented to the Faculty Council of NISD to seek their input. We presented to the DLT and also got their input, which is the district leadership team. We came back to the committee, and finally, we also presented to the DEIC again to gain additional input and feedback. And I'm going to show you the results of all those meetings, and I feel like I have talked through DOI quite a bit this fall. If you are interested, either audience or board members, there is the school district website. You could go to curriculum instruction, and there is a link to District of Innovation. That's a tiny URL, but you can also just find it right there on our district webpage. I don't intend to go to the website tonight, but we definitely could if need be. But it has all the resources and presentations that we've done and used. Okay. As I mentioned, we wanted to follow the strategic framework. The committee was asked to align any requests to this framework and make sure it's best for our kids, falling in line with our core beliefs, but also our strategic goals. So this is the question that drove our committee. What operational changes would have the biggest positive impact on student learning experiences in NISD? And I used this slide over and over throughout the fall to try to refocus us if we started chasing down different ideas that might not do that. And we also said that we're not going to change for change's sake, but is it going to have a positive impact on our operational experiences? So this question was very important to us. So some of the initial committee work. We spent a great deal of time talking about the background of the innovation process throughout the state and what the legal requirements were. I also asked the committee to research what other districts were doing. With 784 of them in the state of Texas doing something, somebody's got to be doing something right. So even though it's innovation, we wanted to find out what others were doing. The committee was asked to study 3 to 4 different plans and come back to our committee and discuss that. So we did that. We collaborated with what ideas we thought NISD stakeholders would share, what other things we're doing, what would be positive, and then we identified themes, categories, or ideas that were emerging for us. Okay? And here's what kind of have emerged. Four big categories. The calendar and start times and school minutes all became an issue. A lot of discussion around that. There was some discussion around things that dealt with teachers, like contracts and certification. There were some student issues, some rulings that involved students that I'm going to talk about. And there were some curriculum instruction. Imagine that. And so those were the 4 categories that started to emerge through our discussions. As the committee continued, we took those major categories and we started trying to prioritize our ideas. Okay? In the meantime, with the help of Christy Hobbs and Kim Cayley from HR, we started talking about, are these things going to be in compliance with board policy? And if they're not, then we would have to come to you and ask you about that as well. And so we have some subcommittees that may extend past the DOI plan and process, and depending on where we go tonight and into the future over the next couple of months. One piece of information and data I wanted to bring forward to you, we shared at every one of our presentations over the fall, and it's been on the district website for over a month now, but this process called Thought Exchange. What did our community say about this process? And we put that driving question up there. And it was really interesting. There were over 175 different ideas or answers to that question. Okay? What the Thought Exchange website does, though, is it allows other community members, maybe they don't want to share an idea, but maybe they're just reading through things. So we had over 7,300 different ratings of those ideas to go through. So that was kind of exciting to see how many different people chimed in, if you will. What you can see on this bar graph is the five themes that emerged from the top 100 vote getters. The top 100 vote getters. And out of that, the four themes that I already mentioned, which was the calendar, the curriculum instruction, teacher issues, student issues, took up 96 of those. There were 4 that had to do with some operational things. I'm just going to leave those to the side for a moment. But you can see 33 people out of the top 100 talked about the calendar. Okay? Another 25 mentioned some C&I issues and so forth. So that was that was the first time we had tried to gather information that way, and I think it was highly successful, and we may try to use that type of data again. So there's our question. Okay, you've seen how many people chimed in and rated, and let me show you where we are. The next part was the group did this. Okay, They took the idea or a waiver that needed to be addressed, and we asked subcommittee work to do the following 4 questions. Was the support level low, medium, or high for that particular idea? Meaning, when people voted, did they give it a high rating? Did they give it a low rating? What did that look like? And also, the subcommittee was asked to prioritize, was it low, medium, or high priority to us? Because just because something got a lot of publicity, if you will, or a lot of feedback, doesn't necessarily mean it was a high priority to us to have a positive impact. And so then I asked the subcommittee on those particular ideas, what is the positive impact for NISD? What is something we think, why would we want to do that? And then the last question was kind of funny, do we have to have DOI to accomplish it? Okay, so this was our subcommittee work moving forward. So out of that, based on the research of other districts, based on our own experience, ideas, and input, based on stakeholder feedback, 26 different ideas emerged that we really want to consider as far as improving the operational status of NISD. But only 12 of them required a DOI plan. So that was good. We took that as a positive. So how did we prioritize those 12? That both the DOI committee and DEIC in the last couple weeks were given individual surveys to share feedback and support for those 12 DOI ideas. Okay? Based on those results, NISD and administration, we talked about them, and we're bringing forward 9 exemptions for you to consider. Okay? Several of them did not have the kind of support we would want. And here they are. I have these listed on 2 slides. One is high priority support. That means a lot of people that we talked to, a lot of our stakeholders, felt like this was both a high priority and have a high support. One was the uniform start date for an academic calendar. Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean everybody's voting early, but that definitely means that we would like to explore the ideas and have the flexibility to start earlier if we would like. Now, as I reminded the committee many times, the DOI committee is not approving the school calendar. That is a separate issue that Dr. Espinoza leads a group through annually, and she would do so as well. If we approve DOI, several of the options may include an early start date, right, Dr. Espinoza? But it doesn't, but not all of them, right? So that is a piece there. Minutes of instruction. As you may recall, a couple of years ago, the state went from days of instruction to minutes. It can make the calendar somewhat complicated to try to do when we have half days and things of that nature. And so minutes of instruction would ask to get out from under that guidance. It doesn't mean we would go less or more, but it means we wouldn't have to count minutes every single day. Okay? Educator certification is a piece we talked about quite a bit and what we would allow here, and we would probably develop some regs around if there is a need to hire someone that does not have a teacher certification. An example might be in a career in tech field, although not always. Sometimes world languages were also brought up as a possibility of someone that might could teach. One of the things we'd want to do carefully here and under Dr. Cayley's guidance is make sure we develop a plan to support these teachers, these individuals, if that were to be the case. We can also identify high-need classes and whatnot, hard to recruit classes if we wanted to do so. Campus behavior coordinator, that was one that got kind of slipped in by the legislature a few years ago, and it said that basically one person's responsible for the campus behavior reports and plans, and we don't really follow that anyway because a lot of our assistant principals do that as a team, and so we just want to make it somewhat legal and say we're going to share that responsibility instead of having just one person on a campus. And the removal of unwanted visitors. This was another one that kind of slipped in at the last minute in the last legislature, and it has to do with basically have to warn a person before you ask them to be removed from campus, either a parent or a visitor, and you also have to present them in writing how they would grieve that process if they chose to. And we want our administrators and other designated personnel to have the right to ask a person that's acting unruly to be removed from the campus or a school event without having to do those things. And so that is a piece brought forward. So those are before I go to the next slide, questions or thoughts on any of those? Yes, sir.
On the removal of unwanted visitors, does that stem more from sporting events?
Probably.
Okay.
It doesn't say that specifically, but yes, that would be a piece that could happen. Okay. On the next slide, these four would be categorized as moderate priority or support. They are things that we definitely discussed, and they do have support, and I think could help our district, but they were not, again, recognized quite as high as the first slide. One is a credit by examination, a CBE. Right now, the state says you have to get an 80 on a test, and we would like to create our own local version of that, if possible. For a variety of reasons. It used to be 90, and then they moved it down to 80. We feel like maybe we'd come up with some local guidance around that and a regulation. Minimum days of attendance. This was an interesting one. One of the things we do not want to do for sure is send a message that attendance is not important in our schools. There are some cases, in some instances, where a student can definitely master the curriculum without being in class 90% of the time, which is the current rule. And give you different examples of what that is, but maybe an extended illness or whatnot, something that caused that, but they really are truly the type of student that has already mastered the class. We don't feel like they should be penalized and either have to go to summer school or make up seat time when they've mastered the course. So it gives us a little flexibility there. I think the reason it's under the moderate to priority is because we definitely do not want to send a message that attendance is not important. The last two, probationary contract for experienced teachers. There is a rule that if an experienced teacher is hired by NISD, say in the 5 to 8 year range, they are eligible for a probationary contract for 1 year. What we would be asking for is an exemption to extend that to a second year if needed. Some of the rationale behind that is it gives both the campus and the teacher that's getting used to NISD and those expectations, the ability to have a second year without having to make a final determination on whether they go to term contract or not. And the last one is teacher mentors, and the law says that a teacher needs to have been a teacher for 3 years before they can serve as a mentor. There was some discussion that both with our rapid growth and the number of teachers we hire, and also some of the talent that we have with some of our younger teachers, that we would like the flexibility if a principal felt someone with less than 3 years experience was ready to be a mentor for someone, that they would have the ability to do that. That would be a principal decision. As you can see, almost all of these things would involve additional work as far as regulations and guidance, but these are the 9 that have come to you so far at this point. Just for curiosity's sake, these are some of the other things that came up in the discussion that don't require DOI, but will require my department and others to play with quite a bit. A lot of feedback around the 9-week grading policy. I think that's something we're definitely going to be exploring no matter what the calendar looks like. We don't need a DOI to do that, but that gained a lot of momentum this fall, and so that's something we'll be looking at and bringing to you for some discussion. School daily start times. I do think that goes with the minutes a little bit. It also goes with some of our transportation constraints because we're such a big district geographically. Professional development days, a 0 hour for some of our high school students especially. Standards-based grading has come up as a possible help for curriculum instruction. Personalized learning, and you saw some of the indication of that with the blended learning in our courses at the high school guide, but continuing that, which is part of our strategic plan. Expanding various CTE pathways. I think you already saw results of that tonight. Curriculum needs, alignment, homework, recess, daily planning requirements for our teachers, alternative appraisals, virtual learning. So those are things that we may or may not explore as we move into the spring and next year's district improvement plan, but they were definitely things on the committee's mind. Our next steps. I'm here tonight presenting. Pending your feedback and discussion, I will come back to you in December and ask for you to approve the items. If that is done and we get approval in December, we would post our innovation plan on the website for 30 days. And then we would come back in January. In that 30 days is for public feedback as well. We would come back in January. I would be responsible for sending intention to vote to the commissioner. DEIC would look at that vote, and we would bring you the final plan in January. And if you approved it in January, we would then send notification to the commissioner for approval plan. Again, as a reminder, we do not have to seek the commissioner's approval. We just notify them. You guys are the final approval on that process. So that's where we are right now. Any other thoughts or questions I can help you with? All right. Thank you very much.
At least 2 more times as a board and vote on it 2 more times.
Yes, we would vote on December to post it, and then we would look at any public feedback in January. Okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next item is local policy regarding higher education partnerships. Dr. Warren?
Board, nothing in your packet. Dr. Simpson and I had a discussion about a couple of weeks ago, and she just presented her idea about just having y'all consider a local policy regarding higher ed. If you remember, last board meeting, we approved an MOU to approve a partnership with a higher education, and Ann just thought we might need a local policy to help govern some of that. So I just wanted Ann to kind of explain what her thoughts were to see if y'all want to move forward with that.
First of all, I think the opportunities to help our students access higher education is critically important. So I think that's really a good place to start. But I want to be sure that in our policy that they have opportunities to really look at more than one university. It's a little confusing to me. I want to honor our counseling and advising, and I want to avoid a university seeking to market their service because I think that puts our administration in a difficult position. I think it really needs to be about access to all of the opportunities for higher education, and so that was my thinking. What is the policy? What are other districts doing? And again, I want to put first our counseling, our advising, and not get into the position of one university marketing solely. I don't think that does justice to all of the needs that our students might have or to the options that are available. So that was my wondering how we might do that.
So I surveyed 19 districts, both locally and around the state, that seem to be similar to us or even aspirational in some ways. And GNC local is the place where a policy like this would be. That's the policy on relations with educational entities, colleges, and universities. Of those 19, only 4 even had a GNC local. And all 4 of those were identical to ours in that they only address student-teacher programs, so how we place student teachers with us. The others had no GNC local at all. And then I also searched broadly for policies about college recruiters, college counselors, who are not direct employees of the district. We do have a policy for how our employees who are counselors, their obligations to students to counsel them about higher ed opportunities. But none of those had a specific policy for how to address this issue.
I guess, kind of tag along, I believe this program we approved last time, this person from Tech is going to have an office at Northwest High School. But there was also said that they're going to counsel for other schools if they were asked. Is that correct? And then I guess along the same thing, I believe North Texas, they have an Eagle program that does the same, but they visit and do that because I've seen that advertised through the counseling newsletters I get from Byron. So I guess the difference being one's there full time, but I can see what you're talking about with the illusion that they're there to recruit for Tech versus helping someone go to, Texas or something like that.
Correct. UNT does make Eagle Connect is on all of our campuses. We bring them in as much as allowable. Because they are local, it's much easier for them to be here locally. They live locally here. Texas Tech has offered to embed somebody here and actually relocate that person or hire somebody in this area so that they are working with our students. We chose Northwest High School so that there would be more options. Tarrant County College has offered the same thing, and they're embedded in most campuses that are in Tarrant County, and they'll do it at Eaton High School, nowhere else. And so that's kind of where we're at, and we pursue opportunities with all of them. For us to honor, it's not about recruiting for the students, it's about honoring the opportunities that come with equitable access. Many of our counselors have a strong caseload that they have to get kids scheduled, they have to work with them. I mean, they have a massive amount of things they have to do. And then for them to also be the one-on-one college work through in your essays and FAFSA and all of those things, that becomes a lot. And so having an opportunity for and maybe Jamie can speak to that better than I can, just the amount of stuff that's put on our counselors. It's not that we're not honoring that, it's another set of hands to help our students and to provide equitable access, especially to the documents that become so troubling. Things like FAFSA and the college, navigating that college system and making the right choices and the right steps is very difficult.
Here's what I would recommend. Since we really can't find an example of what I think Ann is trying to get us to look at, this will be kind of a really locally developed policy. So I would recommend two things. Maybe let us work for about a month until the December board meeting and work on some language and work with Ann on what her vision is on this. And then also give Celine a chance to come and present a report to you on what she does already, and just looking at the different universities that she already works with and tries to get involved with other things. I mean, you may hear her report and feel that this is not needed. You may hear her report and say this absolutely is needed. And then we can present it just like we do any policy question. We can present it to you in December, and if you'd like to vote it on January, we can go with that. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah. Can I have one more question for Celine before we move? So let's say the tech person's in place. How does a student, can they go up to that tech person automatically, or will the counselor say, hey, that's something you might want to go talk to the tech person, even though you want to go to SFA, but still go talk to them, they have some good information? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Many of the things that we're talking about navigating college, it's open and access to all students. It's having those same conversations and how I fill out that college application. And if I'm stumped on anything, their role and their function is to really help students navigate next steps. And that was part of the conversation, what it was born out of. When we built our request for partnership, it was about helping advise and academically prepare our students navigate that college next step. I mean, there's just a lot of things you got to know to understand how to maximize going into college and getting in and then being able to stay in. We get a lot of students that get accepted and they really don't know what the next step is. And so having some of that transition conversation is really powerful. And from anybody, especially from a post-secondary, advising our counselors who maybe it's been a while and this is a great refresher. This is somebody going, hey, we've got a question for this kid. This is now somebody who's a liaison to have that conversation. And when we have college and career nights, that's somebody that's here with us and they become a familiar face. They become somebody that you can go to and count on, and not just somebody who's doing basically, drive-by advising and they're stopping in for a day and saying hi. It becomes somebody we start building relationships with. That's a goal for us.
Okay, thank you.
One of the questions I had, I don't like having additional policies for things, but I think it really binds what we do. I understand what Dr. Simpson's saying about making it fair for all universities, but to me, I don't like creating a policy for something that I anticipate happening, and I don't know if that's going to require us to go out for RFPs. Who wants to come and establish an office here? And if so, does that become a lottery system? We've got so many universities. I don't really see that, but I can't really see the future. So,
I guess a couple questions after listening. One, do we need to expand our counseling and advising staff? And secondly, some of the things you're talking about, universities do once the students get there, and they are really geared to helping that student be successful once they arrive on campus. And universities have put a lot more support into helping students stay. So I guess what I want to be sure that we're doing is the counseling and advising that is needed and not getting into certain markets. And I want to be sure our students have access to all of the good information.
Absolutely agreed. We 100% want as much access and opportunity. We have reached out continually to multiple partners to establish those opportunities as well. From a counseling and academic advising side, I would say I don't think there's ever enough in the things that, especially as these lovely mandates come from Austin. And when they come from us from Austin, it's also a lot of hands and paperwork that gets touched. And so our counselors who got into it for a really great reason, which is to help and work with our students one-on-one, are also the bearers of undue burdens from the multitude of compliance that comes down. And so they spend a lot of time in the A through F and not as much time on the one-on-one that they'd like to have. So yes, we do have a great need, and many of our students, and you're correct, our college providers do a really great job once they get there. Where we see a lot of transition issues that seem to be happening is that gap from May to August. It's getting them there and then having the grit to get from August to December. How do we make sure that they get there and have a good game plan for them so that we're all in this together?
And again, I think universities are geared up for that in a much different way than they have been in the past.
I'd just like to say I agree both with Dr. Simpson and what Mr. Schluter said. I don't want to hamstring us. I think what the solution that Dr. Warren offered to look at it and see, going forward, that's, I see both sides of this issue.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Josh and Mark. Colleges, when they come on a campus, no matter what college it is, they're marketing to try and get kids. We have a college and career night, it was 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. And those kids are in there, and the colleges and career, whoever they are, they're giving stuff away to the kids. They're marketing themselves. And I know that TCC is one, they'll actually place somebody on your campus that is a person that works between their closest campus and your high schools. They'll put one at each high school. TCU has a program with Birdville, and they only go to Haltom High School, and they work with the students at Haltom High School, helping them get prepared to go to college. They don't market. They don't help the kids fill out applications to TCU, but they help them with study habits. They help them with planning for college, finance, things like that. And I think that's, if we start trying to put a policy on something that we want the kids to have access to, we start to limit that amount of access, because some are not going to go through trying to, they'll be glad to come and set up an office and give information to kids and help them fill out FAFSA forms. But at the same time, if you say, well, you're going to have to follow these regulations as part of our district policy, they're going to say, nah, I'll just go somewhere else. And then we limit our kids. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to limit any kid from being able to go to any college or university that they want. When I came out here, moved out here, kids were excited to go to Texas A&M. That was the ultimate. If you could get into UT or Texas A&M, that was it. Right, Mark? It still is. But you could talk to a kid about going to Rice or Northwestern or Duke or Harvard or Yale, and they go, I'm not interested. Don't want to go there. It's too far away. My parents don't. They just want me to go to Texas A&M or UT. And that's fine. But at the same time, we want our kids to reach out as far as they possibly can because they're in competition. If they go to Texas A&M or UT or North Texas, they're in competition with the kids at Harvard and Duke and Yale and University of Chicago and MIT for jobs. And so we need to make sure they understand that. And so I agree with you that I don't want to limit anything, but I don't know that I want to put a policy in place. I just think open the door. If some college wants to come in and say, hey, we'd like to come in and meet with your kids. I mean, we had it, I guess we still do. We have universities set up a day that they come in, and they usually let the counseling staff know. They set up a place either in the hall or in the cafeteria, and the kids can go up and see them, and they'll usually have some time where they can actually send for kids, and the kids can come down if they're interested in that college or university. So, and I think just having somebody that can facilitate the nitty-gritty of it, which is the application process, and not that the counselors can't do that, but they are pretty busy. And then the FAFSA, the financial stuff, staying away from loans, trying to find work-study programs, really studying the college or university they think they want to go to make sure that is where they want to go. I mean, you don't go to the University of Arizona to study forestry. There's not that many trees in that part of Arizona. There's a lot of cactus and desert, but, I'm just being silly, but it's like, going to the University of Oklahoma to study ichthyology. You don't go there to study fish unless it's bass or catfish. So I think kids really have to learn what they're going to study and then start looking for colleges that meet those needs. And I think we have that through the Naviance. Yeah. So anyway.
I just wanted to say I agree with Mr. Hastings, and I too wish we could just open the door to anybody. I would personally, this is just a one-year agreement, right? Mm-hmm. I just kind of like to know this year what things happen, how they help the kids, maybe give us a report at the end of the year on how it goes.
Absolutely.
Would be great.
And then let other colleges know, hey, we did this last year, and this is what.
I'm not going to say that we didn't try to leverage it already with UNT. Being very, very vocal in the fact that the respective college choice of our seniors of this last graduating class, number 3 and number 4 for Northwest High School and Byron respectively, was Texas Tech University, behind TCC and University of North Texas, which are both 1 and 2. And so when we look at the concentration of students that are going in their top 5, that's definitely something we're definitely going after. And those are the places where we're concentrating to get the most bang for our buck and to provide as much opportunity as possible, because our students are choosing these, and we want to make sure that our students are not part of the choice that happens that if they score 1,000 on the SAT or better, they become the 2/3 that drop out of college and don't complete it. And so anything that we can do in our greatest area of need to provide the most opportunity for our students is definitely what we're trying to pursue.
And I agree with all of that. And I know that Tech is a popular university in this area, and I checked with a couple other school districts in the area, and that is also the choice. I think, though, that maybe if it's not a policy, we need a well-articulated process for how we reach out, and we ensure that students are aware and have access to multiple universities. And I do think that we have to be careful, particularly if we're providing space.
Absolutely.
Because that can be a gift of taxpayer dollar.
Well, let's just do this. Let's just articulate that process that Selena is already using at our next board meeting, and we'll see where we need to go from there. Is that good for everybody? I mean, my real problem with Selena is she does nothing for Angelo State, and I think our kids need Harvard on the Concho.
I'll start working on that. They got a good meat judging team.
Sit down, Selena.
Thank you. All right. Now we're moving on to reports. Board orientation report from Human Resources. Dr. Warren?
Kim is going to continue our board orientation reports, and she's going to do HR.
Okay, yes.
Dr. Kaylee?
Yes, I'm excited to be here with you tonight to share more about our Human Resources Department with you. And I will start by introducing some of our team members. This is our executive team. We have Kitty Paylor, our Executive Director of Benefits and Risk Management. Kim Barker is our Executive Director of HR. Missy Hudson is our Director of Elementary Staffing, and she also oversees our Guest Educator Program and Student Teacher Placements. And Dr. Eric Drury is our Director of Secondary Staffing, and he also works with our temporary employees, maintenance, as well as special education staffing. And this is our whole team, and we are separated and organized into 3 separate areas. We have benefits and risk management, human resources, and records management. There's one interesting fact about our team is our tenure with Northwest ISD. Combined, including this 18-19 school year, we have 187 years of working for the school district. So Brenda, I'm not making you feel old. I'm right there with you. But I think it really is something fun that we like to share with our new hires, that this really is a great place to live and work and raise your children, and a testament to our dedication to the school district. Our benefits and risk management team really strives to take care of our employees. While they're working for us, they could face some challenges either medically or in their personal lives. And so this team really meets with our employees to make sure that they get the leave that they need, that accommodations are in place to help them successfully work through their job. And also risk management, making sure that the activities that we have on our campuses, field days, homecoming parades, are safe for all of our students and community. And if there is an accident, really pulling some departments together to minimize those risks from occurring again. The most important role that we play in our department is trying to make sure that we have the best employees and teachers in our school district. So that starts with really making sure that we're appropriately staffing for our growth in student enrollment, that we're ensuring that the people that we're bringing in do have the necessary certifications, and that they pass our screenings to be able to work for us, and then really taking care of our employees while they're here. We want to make sure that our supervisors and our campus principals feel confident in working with personnel, and we also want all of our employees to know that we have an open door, that if they are experiencing issues or they have questions, that they know that they can come to any of us at any time to help them. Christy Little is our records management officer, and she manages all the records and retention for the district. She maintains our record storage warehouse and also oversees student record requests, subpoenas, as well as affidavits. We really do feel honored that we have the opportunity to support all of our employees through their employment career with us. We may be that very first face that they get to meet at a recruitment fair, and the last person that they meet with whenever they are separating from the district. So that is a responsibility that we do not take lightly. Strategic Goal 2 really does define our role in our department, and there are 3 words within this goal that I've highlighted: recruit, value, and retain, that I want to share a little bit more about our work with you. We attend approximately 14 job fairs this school year. Most of these are around the Metroplex, but we do go across the state to try to recruit. We like to take our campus administrators with us, as well as from different departments. We'll take Dr. Lacefield and some of our athletic team, special education, to go out and really try to talk to candidates and try to get them to apply in our district. Our application system is all online now, so we take our iPads with us, and we're able to get information from our candidates if they have not yet applied. I was reminiscing a little bit with Brenda the other day in the office, and I became a campus administrator back in, I think 16 years ago, 2005. Is when I first became an administrator, and we did not have an online system yet, so we still had the paper applications. And so if a principal was looking for a teacher, they would come over and sit in one of the rooms in HR, and we would Brenda would pull file cabinets out, and we would go through applications. Once a recommendation was made, somebody from the HR office would type up a form, and they would run it down the hallway to payroll. So it's really fun now to just see how far we've come really in a short amount of time, and everything is online. We're currently actually transitioning from our paper personnel files to digital personnel files. So we're hoping within the next year or so to be fully digital there. So Tim, that may save you a little bit of room there too if we don't have a filing room. This year we were so excited that we hosted our first Northwest ISD Career Fair just for our school district. And anyone that wanted to attend the career fair had to complete an application. We screened those applications to make sure that the references were in line, that they were either already certified to teach or they were anticipated getting their certification by the end of the spring semester. We invited 180 to come to this fair. So every campus was represented. The attendees got to go around and meet face-to-face with our campus principals. And then they had two one-on-one interviews with the campuses of their choice. They got to prioritize the campuses that they really wanted to be at, and we hand-scheduled those. So out of those 180 that attended, we actually hired 46. So that was over 25% of those that attended got a job with us. And that was great because those were people that really wanted to be in our district, and it just gave them a great opportunity. So we are planning on increasing this next year. We've already got our date saved, and we're moving it to Northwest High School to the student union so we can hopefully expand that opportunity. We also enjoy placing student teachers in our district. We place about 70 a year, and those are great new hires for us. We put them with some of our best teachers, and they have a semester to a year-long interview with us. They're ingrained in our culture. They really get to learn our curriculum. And we also like to go to our high schools with our students that are looking to be teachers. We get invited to go in and speak to the kids about different certifications, and we actually give them a certificate that once they graduate from college, they can come and have an interview with us. And there is nothing more that we like to do than to welcome our students back to Northwest to start their careers with us. We know that it's important to have a quality teacher in the classroom every single day. So when our teachers are out, we have really poured a lot into our guest educator or substitute teacher program this year. And the recruiting never stops. We know that the people that really like to be in our classrooms and substitute for us really live in our community. So we've tried to be very innovative this year in reaching out on different ways that we could recruit. The pictures on the left, the Mom's Job Fair, this was new this year, and it was a couple of months ago in Keller, but it was put on by a realtor that it was designed for moms that had been staying at home with their family and they were ready to get back in the workforce. So we attended that and really talked to them about, substitute teaching is a great way for you to kind of ease back into the workforce and have some flexible time and be on your own child's schedule. The past few weeks, we've also attended several trunk or treats at some of our elementary campuses and passed out candy and also recruiting cards. We had an orientation this past week, and several of the attendees that we onboarded were actually from some of our trunk or treat events. So we were excited to have our parents joining us. The top right corner, last year we started something new at our orientations and invited our principals to come in. And they come in at the very beginning and just introduce the campus to them and how they would support them on their campus. If our guest educators feel welcome and supported, then they're going to accept more jobs. It started out just where they would come in and maybe a few would pass out their business cards, and it's gotten very competitive. At our last orientation, some of them started to pass out lanyards and little treat bags with candy, and Kara Lee Deerdorf actually won. She is the associate principal at Byron Nelson, but she brought in food samples from the bistro. So she brought in little samples of macaroni salad and brownies and, told them not only do you have a great place to come and work, but you can go right upstairs to the Culinary Academy and have a gourmet lunch. And then our retirees, when our retirees leave us, they aren't always ready just to totally step away from campus life or the school district. And so we sent out handwritten thank you notes to all of our retirees in the spring and just thanked them for their dedication to the school district and also invited them to onboard with us as a guest educator. So they love to be in our campuses. I want to share with you a recent guest educator that we had. Under expense. Whoops. I just dropped this, sorry. Oh well.
Well, this was Dr. Warren, so hopefully you've been able to. No, that's okay. But Dr. Warren did have a stint as a middle school teacher the past couple of weeks, but he does enjoy being able to get back into the classroom. And if you haven't seen it, Emily, is this on our website? Okay, that's okay. That's okay. But we really do appreciate, his dedication. I think it sets a really good example for our parents and our community that he does want to stay connected. And he's done high school, he's done middle school. We know what's next. Yes, and I know the kindergarten kids are going to love you. Love you, love you. It's going to be a great experience. Great experience. So there are various ways that we want to show our employees that we value them. This is one of our favorite roles in our department. Our new hires, we do orientations throughout the summer once a week. We're probably going to have to start going to even twice a day. I mean, we're looking at probably having to do 2 a day. Right now, they're a full day of training that we do. But we really want our employees to feel welcome, and we want to equip them with the tools and knowledge that they need to start their careers with us. This past year for 18-19, we hired over 500 new employees. And we also transferred over 300 employees just within our district. That is a little bit more than typical, but we opened 2 new campuses and had several attendance boundary changes. And sometimes there are just people that would like a new opportunity and a new challenge. We train our principals and our staff on different things related to HR. This past month, we actually went to our national HR conference in Minneapolis, and we had submitted 3 proposals that were all accepted. So we enjoyed the opportunity to be able to really get our brand out there among other school districts in the nation and share with them some of the things that we've been doing here in Northwest. We try to bring convenient health care to our employees. Our health clinic is one of our best perks. It's available to anyone that is on our insurance plan along with their dependents, and they have very flexible schedule. In fact, we talked to them about a week ago about opening earlier just for some of our elementary teachers that could go before the school day starts. So starting in December, they're going to start opening at 7 o'clock a.m., 2 days a week. They've been very accommodating with our needs, but teachers can go over there during their planning time. They can usually go right in and don't even have to have an appointment, and as long as they're not sick, be quickly seen by a physician and get right back to work. So it is a great perk for our employees, and we try to bring wellness to them. We have mammogram units that are mobile, vascular screenings, as well as flu shots. And at central office, even though we are under the same roof, it's not very often that we really run into each other. And so we try to plan fun events throughout the school year just to bring our departments together and just have fun and celebrate, get us away from our desks a little bit. And we also realize the importance of valuing our guest educators. So we try to provide ideas for our campuses to recognize them and show that they're appreciated. And this past year, we put a recognition program in place for our guest educators that allowed our teachers and our administrators to rate them on a 1 to 5-star rating. And then we invited those that were our 5-star educators to be recognized at one of our spring board meetings. Sometimes we can have an image problem in HR. When we walk together as a team, even down in our building, some people will duck into their offices and kind of turn the other way, and oh my goodness, here come the suits down the hallway. Granted, we do have to do some very tough things in our job every day, but we really don't walk around with pink slips in our hands. So we want our employees to know that we're accessible. It's great for us to be able to get into the campuses and go to school events. It's just a reminder really of why we do what we do every single day. And we love being the little cheerleaders at the new teacher breakfast to welcome our new employees on their first day here at work. Retention and valuing employees really do go hand in hand. And we do have several retention tools that are important to our employees. We try to have a competitive benefit and salary package for them every year. And the mentor program is new to our department this year, so we're really looking forward to working with all of our new teachers and our mentor coordinators to make sure that they get the support that they need. Last year, in December, we did a retention survey to all of our employees, including our guest educators, and we actually got over 1,200 responses back. But we just looked at 2 questions. We wanted to know what attracted them to come to Northwest and why have they stayed here. And we were very pleased with the results. 77% stated that location and the district's reputation were what attracted them to come to the school district, followed by our salary. And when we asked them, why have you stayed in Northwest, 32% said that they stayed because of the coworkers that they had met and the relationships that they had formed, which was followed by location and the leadership in the school district. So that's something that we like to share with our administrators and supervisors so they know kind of what's important to our employees. And we're always looking to get better. As we grow, we have to look at ways to become more efficient and improve our processes. These pictures are from one of our planning days this summer where we really took time to reflect on our practices and figure out what worked well and what are some things that we felt like we needed to change and put in place as we grow. We also did some research on customer service of some companies such as Chick-fil-A, Disney, and Starbucks, and looked at some of their strategies that we wanted to replicate here as we work with all of our employees, and came up with our theme for the year, which is going the second mile. Exceptional customer service happens whenever you go above and beyond what you really have to do. And that is it. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next report is Facilities Monthly Report and Board Orientation Report. Dr. Warren?
Mr. McClure.
Good evening, Board. Happy to be here to give you my report tonight. Here we go. Okay. So just kind of combining the 2 reports, the construction report into the board orientation report, and we'll run through this pretty quickly. NISD team, here's what we cover. We cover maintenance, construction, planning, and safety and security. And that concludes my report. Have a good evening. Sorry. Of course I jest. All right. So I want to get into kind of who we are, and first of all, it's probably pretty obvious, but I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, so some references here that I think everybody in the room will get, but if you don't, that's all right, just bear with me. So who are we? So I think that as a department, we're often seen as that masked man that comes running in the room to save the day maybe, or coming into the site to save the day, and that's the Lone Ranger I grew up with, but if you know the more modernized Lone Ranger, then there you go. That's for you in the room who don't know the old one. Of course, we also get asked the question of, what do we do? Well, we feel like we're Captain America at times. We're here to protect and serve. We always put the kids and the staff and our facilities first. We have a great team. Jim's guys, just at beck and call, will go do whatever they need to do to make sure that we're putting everything first for our kids to protect and serve. Do we have superpowers? Absolutely. I've seen our guys caught on fire. I've seen them flooded. So they leap tall buildings. They do everything that they need to do to make sure that we're servicing the top priority of our staff and our students. And then, of course, the last one, my buddy Marty McFly up there in Doc. Can we predict the future or foresee the future? And I would say, yes, we can. Otherwise, how do we prepare for the 1,000 students annually that come into our district? And this is all great. This is really kind of who I think we are in little pieces. But it's not exactly who I believe we are. This is who I believe we are.
In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, no one else can help.
No one else can help.
You can find
and if you can find us,
you can hire.
You can hire the A-Team, right? So great series back in the 80s. Of course, there's the A-Team right there. You got all the guys up there, B.A. Baracus, Murdoch, Pace, and Hannibal, and every episode ended with I love it when a plan comes together by Hannibal. We say that daily as we finish our day. I just call Jim and I say, Jim, I love it when a plan came together, and we just know we did great work. And that's the A-Team of the 80s, but here's NISD's A team. There you go. There's NISD's A team. Okay, so we're there, we're here serving, and that's really who we are, right? So that's how I see us. It may not look the same in your eyes, but in my eyes, that's how I see us. Here's our org chart. Of course, I know. I do have Jim's approval to show that image, so it's okay. So this is kind of our org chart. I know it's hard to see just in big picture scenarios. I mean, Jim oversees a lot of different aspects from custodial to landscape services, and then all his team, and that's what you see below him. And so a big role there. Of course, Sarah oversees a big role in the construction. Said this before, we average over $1 million a week in construction, so that's a big task for Sarah and her team. Mike may have the biggest task of all, even though those two are big. Mike is overseeing the safety and security of our kids, our number one asset, and our staff. So we are very proud. I'm very proud of all the work that they do and the team that we have that support us. We're in the process of bringing on a director of planning, going a little bit slower than what I'd like, but we're in the process of that, and I hope to have that person introduced to you soon. So let's go into maintenance just real quick here. In general, this is who we are, 51 maintenance employees, notwithstanding maybe a hire or two that's on its way. Of course, you know our student enrollment, and you may or may not know we have over 4.5 million square feet of facilities and counting. We added a little bit tonight with your passage of the resolution for the operations facility, and then 50 maintenance vehicles that continues to grow. We handle most of our work through our work order status. That was utilizing School Dude system, came in 2007. To date, we've completed almost 120,000 work requests. Since the first of the year, that's 5,315. On an average, that's 36 a day during the school year and 18 a day during the summer. You say, well, why does summer drop off? Well, there's not as many people there to tell us something's wrong. It's part of the reason. But the other reason is this summer we take on some bigger tasks. These are some of the projects. I know they're not in detail, but these are some of the campuses that our maintenance guys took on major projects. That could be redoing a restroom completely, putting in new tile and new partitions that just needed an upgrade because the fixtures were leaking and they were not being serviced right. It could be changing spaces. With our growth, we're always helping campuses modify their existing space to meet their needs depending on what's going on at each campus. So they do a lot of great work in the summer. Energy management, we'll jump into there, and Charles, Dr. Ashby, leads a great process there. I like this image. It kind of reminds me of kind of just how we grow up at school, like the candle. I don't know if this is fair, but I kind of have this image of like Mark Schluter at the desk with the candle studying. That may or may not be fair. And then, I looked at myself and I say, well, I kind of see myself as the incandescent bulb. When I was in school, it was kind of an incandescent bulb. And maybe Mr. Wright is the fluorescent child. When he was in school, fluorescent bulbs were big. And now we're in the era of LED. So we're in a big process. Dr. Ashby's been leading that process throughout the past several years of LED transformation from, all the way from candles all the way now to LED. And so he does a great job. And one of the things we want to highlight tonight is just the work that he's doing on our campus and in conjunction with Metco Engineering. And we have 3 representatives from Metco here. I'll just have them wave their hand, Cliff, Greg, and Garrett. They're here. They work with Dr. Ashby to make sure that what you see on the screen is happening every year, and that's that Energy Star Certification Award, which is a very, very tough award. A lot of surveying has to be done and a lot of paperwork to fill out. We currently this year, we have 26 out of the 26, we have 24 receive the Energy Star certification. There's 2 that we feel are going to get it, but for whatever reason, EPA kind of put a pause. They put a delay on reviewing that with a pause, which we think will end soon, and we expect those other 2 to come online and to continue to have the 26 schools operating at a very high energy efficient level, and that's much in part to Dr. Ashby and all the work he does. So our hats off to him and the team from Metco and their support. Moving on, ABM, we also have Jason Morgan, the regional director with ABM, is here tonight, sitting by Mr. Sadler over there. Of course, ABM has come in the last few years, and we've switched over to them. I think one of the key aspects in that switch was making sure we had kind of a 3-pronged approach for our high schools and our feeders, and that's what you see there. We have 3 managers across the district that isolate themselves to those schools, and that's really been a benefit for us as we continue to work with ABM and clean our schools and make sure they're taking care of all of the services within and outside the building. Northwest ISD's facilities construction team. So active projects, Curtis, all buildings areas of the building are complete. We actually have what we call is a temporary limited certificate of occupancy. Basically, we have every portion of the building handed over to us today, and as of 1:30 today, we got our health inspection, so the kitchen can be occupied. I think they're opening the doors at 7 in the morning to serve out of the kitchen, and just in time for the Thanksgiving meal on Thursday, so that was the big push. We're really excited about that. All the internal space, you'll see in the updates here in just a minute, is turned over. So you say, why the limited certificate of occupancy? Well, the last thing that's waning on us is the landscape, and we got to get that done before the city will give us actual occupancy. And that 6-week monsoon that we had really put a little delay in us getting that done. The Ag Center is moving forward. You can see the goats and the barns are about to move. Hopefully, maybe not the end of this week. We ran into some rain delays there as well, but we're really close on getting everybody moved and finishing up that project. And then Byron Nelson Fieldhouse is in the early stages of construction. Safety and security upgrades, our first buzzer system. We've gone through the procurement process with the contractor, and we're about to start putting the buzzers at the front door. And so that process began this week. And so Sarah's working with our principals and notifying them when we're going to be on their campus. And they will, I think it's about one a week, or maybe we're shooting for one a week to get in, knock that out, move to the next campus. So that'll take a little bit of time, but we're going to be pushing hard on that. Lance Thompson Elementary School, of course, is moving forward. You'll see the pictures here in a second. And then we've started on Sendera Ranch in Thompson. So here's Curtis. You know the pictures very well by now, but here's the new classroom wing, so no students or teachers in there yet. So this is part of the area that's been turned over, the new hallway there. And then there's the landscape issues. We're still digging irrigation and trying to get sod down, and like I said, the past weather we've had for the last couple months has really detained us there. Ag barn sign, again, just barn pictures, cow barn, inside the cow barn, a lot of work still being done there. Goat barn is being renovated into the goat barn. The pig barn, it works, again, it's just a barn, so they're doing a lot of work there, but we're getting real close. We've got the new drive access that is being poured. You can see the work being done there. Here's the field house, some very early on pictures of the field house. You can kind of see that little pond we got over there from the weather as well, but this is looking basically to the south as you approach from the high school side of the new field house for Byron Nelson. If we move over to the other side, looking back west, you can kind of see the dirt being moved to make way for that project. And then our safety and security upgrades that I mentioned, the guys are there. They've been doing their survey, getting ready to put their paths in and mark the areas on the door where the buzzers will go and work through that release program to allow us to have that vetting at the front door before we let anybody to come in and enter the school. Lance Thompson, this was probably a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, started moving dirt. Here we are today, or in the last week or so. You see steel is being erected. You can start to see the footprint of the building, the 2 slabs of the classroom wings. Haven't gotten the slabs. We're still working through pouring slabs through the middle of the building and onto the kitchen and cafeteria area. But you can kind of see how things are progressing there. That's a shot actually from this morning. So the steel is being erected and things are progressing. Thompson additions and renovation, kind of old hat for most of you. This is the 650 to 850 renovation, so this is just kind of showing you where that's going to happen. It's kind of the same in all the cases, with the one exception. If you look at Sendera Ranch, the property was really tight there, so you see that addition. If I back up, see on Thompson, the classroom addition to the front kind of goes out to the street, and if we move forward, you see it kind of comes into the front door. So we had to make an adjustment there because obviously you see the street curve there. We couldn't get any more classrooms that direction. So a minor adjustment there in the footprint, but we'll still accomplish the same task and still become a great school to serve 850 as that's continuing to grow. On the planning side, the natatorium is still, we're doing some final design work on that. We plan on sending it out for bid in December and bringing that to you in January for approval. Byron Nelson addition and renovation. The actual classroom wing addition is moving forward right now with bids underway. Northwest High School field house and renovation is early discussions with the architect, as well as the Eaton High School addition is early discussions with the architect, and some middle school projects, which are mostly those fine arts upgrades to all our middle schools. Those are being discussed with our architects right now as well. So really getting that work kind of prompted now, so we have work, this time next year as we go to hit into the summer. We'll have the drawings ready and start to bid some of that stuff and work on those projects. You know this, but here we are, 234 square miles, 14 towns and cities, 3 counties, 70 plus. I think we're at 78, if I counted right today, developments that we're tracking, so a lot going on there. I just want to show you this. So this is the kind of the original 8 elementary boundaries, and so when you fade this out, it's pretty impressive to see it go from 8 boundaries to the 18 that we have today. And so you can start to see how those pockets start to break up. You can certainly see where the growth is, because the smaller that boundary is where the densities are higher. The Sendera Ranch area, of course, the areas to the south, and then a little bit of the areas up through Roanoke and 170 there. So that's obviously the boundaries of the district right now, the feeder patterns. There's the middle school feeder pattern, the high school feeder pattern. And you've seen these slides before. This is the most recent update from Templeton, but obviously a lot of growth, job growth in the DFW area, second only to New York City. There we are across the state. The dark green is over 1,000 increase in enrollment. Of course, you see our dark green up there in the Metroplex, and then the areas around the San Antonio, Austin area, and then the Houston area. So those pockets of growth that are happening across the state. When you zoom into the region, if you drew a line right down the middle of the slide, we're in our region there, Region 11, is got the really dark area for where we're the highest growth there. We look in there we are at the top of the list of Region 11 in enrollment trends. House prices continuing to rise. They flattened a little bit, but we're seeing that home price analysis right there is still taking off, not really slowing us down. Here's the new home start distribution throughout the DFW Metroplex, with only about 5 of us in the dark red: Dallas, let's see, who is it? Dallas, Denton, Prosper, Frisco, and of course Northwest. There we are on the new home ranking report based on annual closings. We expect us to go up that list. We've heard Bob and Michelle talk about that. Frisco will start to come down on that list. Denton will eventually start to come down, but we still have that 30,000 homes is represented by those 78 developments, and again, we're 25% built out. So you can imagine that number is going to probably stay around that or grow as we continue to bring on more housing. There's the housing activity. Again, we think we'll approach probably 2,000 homes this year. It's the first time we've seen that since 2005. 2006, we were doing about 2,000 homes a year as a district. There's the distribution of the developments that are happening right now. Our forecast, which again, you've already seen this one, but again, I'll remind you, the green is where you want to be. So yellow means you're going over capacity, green means you're in the sweet spot, white means you're under. So if we could get that whole page to be green, I might not have a job anymore, but at least the schools would be at capacity and operating very well. And there's the high school and middle school, secondary schools, and total campus reports there. Land purchases, of course, the stars you see on there are where we are today. Those are all our existing campuses: blue for high school, green for middle school, red for elementary. Here's the, there's the developments that are active right now, and then the stars are where we have currently purchased school sites or purchased school sites in the past, just to kind of give you that reference check. Safety and security, we'll kind of wind down the presentation here with safety and security. Of course, to provide support, intervention, and guidance in all matters related to safety and security. Really, students and staff are foremost priority for that team. They do a great job in their response and getting things produced. So this is our safety and security bond items that we've talked about are being implemented right now. The entrance and reception areas, of course, we did the reception areas already, and we're working on the entrance, and then the connection of those pieces with the technology that will allow that to have that doorbell buzzer and then provide access in. The door hardware upgrades, the intruder button on or lock on the classroom doors, working with maintenance on that right now, and we're probably already sitting at about 70% complete through all our classrooms, so we imagine to finish the rest of those by the end of this school year. It just takes some time. Jim's guys get out there, our locksmiths get out there and make those updates as they're on site and try to change as many of those as they can. But we're projecting to finish that this school year, so then every classroom function will have an ability to lock down from inside. Access control improvements is part of that reception area, as well as the intrusion alarms. And then the security camera and intercom systems, that's just going to be a continual replacement of cycling out those systems throughout the next couple years. Again, thanks to you, Board, allowing us to up our SRO counts. We have 2 at each high school, 1 at each middle school. Of course, City of Fort Worth has the great allotment of them, about 9 officers there. And then, of course, we enhanced our security guard by 1 to make it 2 at each of the comprehensive high schools. A lot of ground for them to cover as those students continue to grow and those campuses continue to grow. That extra support on both those fronts is very needed and very appreciative, I know, from our campus level as well as from our team. And then these are kind of our focus areas this year that we've really tried to hone in on. Of course, the training with our leadership and staff, the deployment of protocols. A lot of these devices we're putting in, a lot of these upgrades we're making to how people are entering our buildings, there's protocols that have to go with those. And so as you're onboarding campuses one at a time and you're writing protocols and trying to get everybody up to speed, that's a very big task, very big undertaking that we're working right now with both technology and our campus leadership, as well as internally with the safety and security and curriculum. So the continued implementation of the bond items, we talked about that. Equipping our law enforcement partners with the tools and resources they need. We've already done that to a pretty good extent. Almost every first responder around our schools has fob access to our buildings, so they don't have to worry about not getting into our buildings. If there's an emergency, they can get into the buildings. So working with them on those type of tools, and then continuous pursuit of establishing a Northwest ISD Police Department. And as we move into the spring, we look to bring you a report to talk about maybe some early steps in that with a call center that would help us out just to help manage and see the different events that are happening in our district and be able to distribute our resources more quickly as those events happen. The last thing I want to touch on is one of the tools we're using to help with our campuses. This is Navigate Prepared. Great resource for us. This is, if you go into that maps and floor plans, we currently have, well, maybe not our 2 new facilities, we're working on those right now, but we currently have a 360-degree image of every space in every one of our facilities. Pretty cool. So if we have a situation in a campus, we can put a first responder or an officer in that room. It's not live, but he can see the details. He or she can see the details of that room, know there's a window here, a door there, know what's going on with the layout of that room if they need to see it. Very beneficial for us from that aspect. But the real key thing is the drill logs, the safety plans, the flip charts. All that is digitally available and at their fingertips of our campus administrators. And just to touch on one thing, the drill logs. If we click on drill logs, we'll go over here to another screen. Now this would show you, see up there at the top, it says upcoming drills and overdue drills. There's nothing there because I'm logged in, so I'm not designated to a campus. But a campus would have those things listed. They would know what's coming up. In fact, if they miss a drill, it actually sends a notification out to me and Rob and Michael and Mike and all of us, and we get the notification and say, hey, you missed a drill. You need to get that scheduled. So we're on top of them. This helps them hold that accountability to them. But a really nice feature of this, too, is you hit scenarios. And what scenarios does, it brings up a whole list of scenarios for them to play through with their staff at staff meetings. Those scenarios could be video clips. They could be a voice, just an audio clip for them to listen to, and then have a discussion about how they would respond. So here's one I just clicked on. It's a student hostage scenario. It's not a video or an audio, but you could read through that and then have a discussion with their staff on how they want to handle that. Follow back up with Mike, safety and security team, say, hey, here's some points our staff talked about if we ran into this situation. Are we doing this right? And have that conversation in these scenarios that are kind of given to them. And the other nice thing, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can make their own scenarios, and we're working through some situations to do that for them, right? Yeah. So we can use maybe some of our resources with video and audio technicians to create new scenarios as we need and load those on there as well. So a really good resource for our campuses to keep up with so much they got going on academically, but not lose sight of what they need to do from a safety and security standpoint. And with that, I am done. I don't know how long that was, but I know it was over 7 minutes. So. right at 7? Okay, good. I like your watch. Any questions?
Very good job.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next report, social emotional learning report. Dr. Warren?
Board, Michael has done a great job. I just wanted her to bring some information on what her work has been from this edict from our strategic framework committee, and she's made a lot of progress, and I'm very pleased with it. So, Michael, please.
Thank you. It has been a very fun process. It's not up there. Thank you. That's all right. Last year, in, I believe it was late fall, maybe early spring, we began a committee with people from across all schools and all levels, including parents and administrators as well, to form what was then a character ed committee, but it has since evolved into a social emotional learning committee. And when we first started last year, our first step was to decide what is the purpose of our work as a committee, and we wanted to develop a framework for our schools to use as a benchmark to assess how they're addressing the character needs and character development opportunities for students. So as we started studying more about what is character development, we quickly, in doing research, realized that social emotional learning is really the driving force currently across schools in the nation, and definitely based on needs of our students. So in essence, character development is the kind of qualities that we want to develop in all of our students, and social emotional learning is how we teach that and how it is demonstrated in their actions and how they interact with one another and also take care of themselves. So one of the leading organizations in the nation is CASEL, and this is the social emotional framework that they promote, and they're probably definitely the driving force behind social emotional learning across the nation. So as we started looking more into social emotional learning, some key things that resonated from the committee is that we would not want it to be simply a program, but aspects would be embedded in everything that we do. Dr. Warren repeatedly says it's who we are, and it becomes a part of our culture. It has to be owned by everyone. Teachers and staff will all need professional development, and we need a common language in the district. So I'm not going to read these to you, but the committee developed a vision and mission statement for social emotional learning in our district, and also a set of guiding beliefs that have really driven all of our work. In particular, that we believe our families and communities provide the foundation for our student social emotional development. We believe it's an ongoing partnership with all stakeholders, and all of our environments must support social emotional and cultural needs of our students, and we'll need ongoing training and support for our teachers as well. So at the Strategic Summit, we were broken into 13 tables, 100 some odd folks in the room, and at the end of the second day of the summit, one of the tasks for each table was to identify the key takeaways from the summit that they really thought as a district we needed to consider. And 12 of the 13 tables all listed something about social emotional learning needs. From identify SEL standards and a system for implementation, implement K through 12 SEL, social emotional learning, and the staff training, and embed SEL into all school life. So that really resonated from the strategic committee, that this was certainly something that we saw as important for our students. So fast forward into the development of our strategic framework and our priority or our performance objectives, and specifically developing social emotional skills is identified as one of those objectives. So with that, these are some journals that just came onto my desk within the last month or two. You can't pick up an educational journal or attend an educational conference without this being not just a little bit that's talked about, but really the driving theme throughout conferences and journals and research. And I think we're all just realizing it is definitely a need for students across our nation. So the committee then set forth to where do we begin, and based on the strategic committee's work, we knew that starting with establishing our own common language and set of competencies, you'll hear competencies or standards used interchangeably in all of the research. So we started researching what does that look like and what do we want to take into consideration as we develop social emotional learning competencies for our district. So I'm not going to read all of these to you, but these were certainly things that were the driving discussions for us. A simple, clear, concise statements about what students should know and be able to do in each of the core competencies, whatever those may be. These are related specifically to CASELs. That there should be developmental benchmarks established for elementary, middle school, and high school. So what would this look like as students progress throughout the years in our district? That it needs to have specific integration into our academic instruction and skill priorities. That we have to be ready to address that this is just something new or it's something extra, which comes with definitely a strong communication plan and staff professional development. And again, that all the research will say that it shouldn't be approached as a program, but a set of comprehensive practices that are embedded in all that we do. So Jamie Farber and a group of counselors took on the initiative towards the end of last spring, I believe it was, to really start studying what are the major organizations promoting as sets of competencies for us to consider. So there's a list of the ones that they reviewed. And taking a look at the CASEL state competencies, and then also layering in the state of Texas adopted standards for students in the state of Texas last spring, so they took a look at those as well. And this is another document that the state has developed. These competencies aren't just for social emotional learning aspects, it's all of counseling needs, but they took a look at what our state expects related to social emotional learning. So then they put all of that together and developed a draft of what the committee would consider for adopting as our district social emotional learning standards and a framework for us. So here you'll see what the original draft looked like and the language that was used. CASEL has 5 competency strands, and when they looked at that compared to what the state requires, they proposed that we have 6 competency strands with, I believe, personal well-being is one that is not listed in the CASEL model, but it brings in needs of our students as well as what the state expects for us to help us teach our children. So they showed this model to the committee, and also considering would we maybe want to have another version for elementary. So this is using an analogy of a ship, social emotional health in progress. So we took both of these documents to the committee, and we spent an afternoon gathering feedback from the committee using a tuning protocol, and they gave some really valuable feedback. And one of the things that they said was, we probably ought to ask kids about this as well and get feedback from kids. So Jamie went on a road trip, and she met with over 60 students and brought back some really valuable input from our students as well. So we took that input, we listened to their needs, we combined what we heard from our students with what we heard from the committee, and we also had a follow-up session with high school students, taking some of their ideas, and we also have collected some feedback from elementary students as well. so this is just one of the charts that we have from a group of high school students giving us feedback on the document, both the language and the wording in the document, as well as just the overall design. So from gathering that feedback, 3 key things really rang clear to us. Having one district-wide framework was the preference rather than having 2 versions. There was a lot of discussion about would we want to keep the same language for K through 12, or would we want to have an elementary version of language and a secondary version of language. The elementary kids were able to talk about what the language that we used in the document was, already with some of their early learning about social emotional learning. So the committee has decided that one framework would help us have a common language and a common understanding of social emotional learning. That there is some need for some wordsmithing in the language. We've done some of that, taken some of that into consideration, and adjusted some of the wording and language. And we know that will continue to evolve a bit as we get more into some subcommittee work in the near future. And the third thing that rang clear was people weren't real comfortable or real satisfied with the design of the document itself. The wording they felt comfortable with, but the look of the document, especially, and you'll see a video in just a few minutes, especially our students, they were pleasantly but brutally honest that it really did not speak to them. So I'm about to show you a video, but I want to preface it with this was a model after we took the document and shared it with, and Jamie first shared it with over 60 high school students. They didn't like the one with the boxes. They said it was very boring, and they didn't like the ship either. And their conversation before this was ever designed, their conversation was, it needs to be something that really shows growth, that we are all needing to learn and grow in this area, and environment was very important to our high school kids. And environment meaning our parents, our community, our families, and our school all contribute to helping us learn and grow. I had a group of kids at my house one day, and I was going to share the framework with them and get some feedback also. And without saying what it was about, I said, hey, would y'all mind coming to look at something? I want some feedback from you on something we're working with in the district. And one of the kids said, what's it about? And all I said was, we're just making sure that we are preparing y'all to be ready whenever you leave. And they were all seniors. And so one of the students said, well, do you want us to be honest? Because I can tell you right now something that needs to change. And I said, well, sure. And he said, y'all do a really good job of making sure that we are college and career ready. When we're sitting in an English class or sitting in a math class, we know it's preparing us for college and for our career. But what we're not being prepared for is life. And this conversation ensued among this group of seniors about to graduate saying, we really don't know how to have conversations. We don't know how to manage all the different aspects of relationships and conflict resolution. And my daughter was one of them. And they're all really good kids and come from really good backgrounds. And they recognize this as a need. And it resonated among all of our students. So I'm going to show you a quick video. Am I clicking it? And in it, you will hear them see this version. It's in the picture. Still have to. It worked earlier. There we go.
Icon or the graphic of it would like draw us in because it's just boxes. Like the colors aren't really that big a deal, but the way of the page, like just the boxes are all the same shape and it's very like bullets. It looks like a PowerPoint slide.
Yeah, the PowerPoint slide just like smaller than
Yeah, this is
that one kind of.
Yeah, it's just tough.
It just looks really boring.
The flower itself, it's pretty. You can put as many boxes around it, and it still looks like a flower. And in the middle, you can put the acronym, and it's pleasing to look at. It's a flower. Flowers draw people's attention. So it's not boring and it's not too childish because everybody loves flowers no matter how old you are.
The icon! This is definitely drawing me in. Like, I want to read it.
Yeah, that's also really cool.
And the NIC's like at the bottom. I was gonna say that when he said something about that. I was like, maybe put it like in the corner.
I like the idea of nature rather than technology because a lot of this is focusing on relationship skills and like social awareness. And if you're looking down at your phone or focusing on like technology, you're not socially aware and your relationship skills are lacking. All your environment and your like family and the community, like all of that is what makes you grow. So that kind of is what makes you who you are. So I feel like there is environmental because you have the soil. It's, you know, what about the environment or what about our classroom culture is like isn't prohibiting you or inhibiting you from being able to really like develop these skills, and what can we do to help you both ways. So what can you give or what do you need from me and what can I give to you?
The teachers talk to us about like time management or social skills or something like that. And when they do that, it proves that this works by them being in the environment and showing that they can incorporate these stuff. So that way you walk into calculus, this is how you can do this in real world and like get social skills and self-awareness and stuff like that.
Empathy and kindness. Goal setting and evaluating like reflecting. Empathy means you put yourself in other shoes and someone's shoes, and you should like see how someone's feeling.
I really appreciate people are asking for our like
Definitely.
because we're going to be the ones that are having to look.
Well, we're almost out, but
Building a legacy.
yeah, keep that behind and take it with us. I really like the fact that it starts when they're kids.
So the idea of a flower emerged from a group of high school kids and really came from a high school, the small group that was originally talking about a flower concept, and then we worked on this design and took it back to them, and you could hear their excitement. They wanted icons because that's they're the emoji generation. So they wanted icons, they wanted it to be bright, they wanted it to be to draw them in and be visually appealing, and they really resonated when we asked them about the content of the competencies. One thing that's not on this version, but groups of high school kids repeatedly said is we also need to add time management. We need help learning time management skills. So that's a piece that has been added as well. So we took it back, we got more feedback from them, and they really wanted environment to be showcased even more than it was. So we added it to the center to show family, community, and school. We even have a version of it where that's spinning in the middle, and they wanted environment showcased a little more. You heard the student talk about the soil and so forth, to show the roots, because they would talk about, you know, it's growing our roots by helping us have develop these social emotional skills. So it was pretty impactful to hear our kids come up with these ideas and to be excited about it. We've sought feedback from Faculty Advisory Council, DEIC, the committee, and principals as well. And I will tell you, there has not been one single negative comment or question about it. So we're excited to move forward with that. The students did like a plainer version as well, where it's just the word and just the icon. So we'll be working with the committee on how we would incorporate both of these into our classrooms and into our curriculum for next year. So our timeline, where we are headed after this, our committee has reconvened. We're sharing the update with you. We're now moving into some pretty extensive subcommittee work. So we're expanding the committee. We'll have many more teachers, counselors, administrators. We're going to invite some of the students that we heard from to be a part of the committee, and some additional parents as well. And so our next level of work will be coming up with some guides for how do we use the competencies and how will we incorporate those into our curriculum, embedding those into curriculum, and coming up with some ways for our campuses to self-assess where they currently are in embedding social emotional learning into their everyday work. So in the spring, when that is completed, we plan to share those guides and the self-assessments with principals. Campuses will assess where they are with the SEL competencies, and we will start professional development training. We plan for all staff members to be trained in SEL before school starts next year. And we also are looking at a way for teachers to self-assess how they implement or embed these skills within their own teaching practices and ways that they may be able to continue to expand their modeling and knowledge of that, and also continue embedding it into our curriculum. And then it will be a part of campus improvement plans starting next year. And there's also quite a bit of research on student assessment, assessing students individually on where their strengths with social emotional learning skills are, and ways that they could set some goals themselves. So that's something we will explore, and then we'll start implementing it into classrooms and across the district. So that, in a nutshell, is where we are. Any questions?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Thank you. This is something our kids need, and it's going to help the teachers, it's going to help the administrators, it's going to give the kids tools they need for life, and I'm really glad to see that it's going to be the same language across the district, because a lot of times we get into, and our kids are mobile, and they're talking one thing at one campus and one thing at another, and with them, everybody talking the same language and going in the same direction. This is really going to help our kids. Thank you. Thank your committee.
Thank you. One thing that did really surprise us is never did we have a single student say, we don't really need these. Without a doubt, they all affirmed that, yes, we definitely need to be learning this. So it's pretty rewarding.
I love how you included the kids. And
you know, I've said, never would we have developed a flower and thought that it would fly until it came from a group of high school kids, and you just never know until you talk to the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 10, consider any item removed from the consent agenda, and there were none. President's report, I do not have anything tonight, so Dr. Warren,
Or just
Superintendent's
a
report.
couple of things. Texan playoff game this Friday against Wichita Falls High School by district championship. We'll be right here at our home stadium. Jennifer will send you 3 opportunities to see our Christmas plays from EHS Theater, Byron Nelson, and Northwest High School. She'll send you those dates and times. And then wrap up, because we have the Reindeer Romp coming on this Saturday, December the 8th. And I think it's going to be cold this year. Mrs. Kopp, that's all we have.
Second.
And we thank you for your support.